The court has clarified that had Mr. Thackeray would not have resigned, then in that scenario, status quo ante would have been granted. But now, since he had resigned himself, therefore court can't do anything.
So the court also basically stated if Uddhav, after Uddhav resigned, then it was absolutely legal to call in for a floor test by the governor.
That I could not hear. Once the judgment is out, we'll clarify.
Just to clarify, what has the court said regarding the role of the governor?
It said that the governor should not have taken into account because there was no objective material on the record.
So effectively what the Shinde faction MLA said was not objective material to topple the government, but because the government resigned by itself, therefore they will not get any relief.
That's what I can understand. When the judgment is out, we'll clarify.
With regards to the whip, the Supreme Court had certain observations to make.
On the issue of whip, yes. On the issue of whip, I'll answer this question first. On the issue of whip, the court has said that the whip of the political party will be given primary consideration.
But at this point of time, then who will be the new whip? Will be the whip?
Senior होंगे just Abhikal Pratap Singh, advocate on record.
Abhikal Pratap Singh.
We have Abhikal Pratap Singh with us, who is the lawyer for Eknath Shinde. Abhikal, what was the crux of the judgment today? Whether there would be a change in the Maharashtra government at this point of time due to the Supreme Court judgment?
I don't see that. What I could understand is now the speaker will decide the disqualification, and then whatever happens it will follow.
Okay. Another question is that with regards to the whip, the Supreme Court had to say that, when there are two whips, the speaker was not right into it. So whether the old whip would remain or the new whip that is currently there would remain, what is the crux of this whole?
As I understand the judgment, the whip of the Uddhav Thackeray Sena party will remain into operation as per the judgment. Well, we'll clarify when the judgment is out, but this is what I understood from the judgment.
But finally, the status quo ante would not be...
Cannot be granted. Supreme Court said its status quo ante cannot be granted because Mr. Thackeray had resigned himself.
This was Abhikal Pratap Singh, who was representing Eknath Shinde as the filing counsel for Eknath Shinde in this particular case. We'll also go across to various senior advocates who would be speaking at this point of time. But at the same point of time, big verdict coming in from the topmost court of the country, clearly saying that if at all Uddhav Thackeray would not have resigned, the status quo ante could have been restored. Uddhav Thackeray could have been restored in the government. In fact, questions have been raised on the governor's role in this particular case as well, clearly saying that, the Maharashtra governor had not acted in a proper manner. He had no objective to actually say that, there is no will of the people of the MLAs in that particular political party, and he should have seen the other members as well. But at the same point of time, finally concluding that since Uddhav Thackeray did not face a floor test in this particular scene and scenario, the governor had no option to call for a floor test and invite the Bharatiya Janata Party, which was the single largest party at that point of time, to form a government in the state of Maharashtra. So a big blow coming into Uddhav Thackeray, but questions being raised on the actions of the speaker and the governor as well.
Ananya, explain to our audiences, one of the first parts of this judgment was the reference to the Nabam Rebia case and the fact that it had been decided that it would now be referred to a larger 7-judge bench. Now, the Nabam Rebia case, of course, took place 6 years ago, where the Supreme Court passed a judgment on the powers of the Arunachal Pradesh speaker to disqualify MLAs. I want to understand from you, if it is referred to a 7-judge bench, could that judgment still affect this order, or is this order clear? Will it stand as it is?
Well, this order would stand evident in its own way, because remember that the final conclusion of this judgment was that since Uddhav Thackeray had resigned and since the status quo ante could not be actually reversed in this case, the Eknath Shinde government would remain in the state of Maharashtra and there would be no change. However, when the detailed judgment comes out, we'll get to know more reasons as to why the Supreme Court had done so. But at the same point of time, the reference of Nabam Rebia was to a limited question that whether the speaker can actually decide on the disqualification proceedings when
नाही अपात्रतेच्या संदर्भात पण निर्णय आता स्पीकर घेतील. आज बड़ी राहत है. माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने जो निर्णय लिया है वो निर्णय का हम लोग स्वागत करते हैं. जो नाबाम रेबिया का रेफरेंस दिया था उसमें 179 और 180 में कुछ अमेंडमेंट करने की जरूरत है, तो वो लार्जर बेंच के पास उन्होंने रेफर किया, क्योंकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में अगर चेंजेस करना है तो लार्जर बेंच के पास वो जाना चाहिए, ऐसा सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा हुआ है। और जो अपात्र के गवर्नर के बारे में भी माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने जो टिप्पणी की है उसके बारे में, उनकी जो प्रोसीजर है प्रोसीजर फॉलो करने के बारे में। लेकिन अभी जो व्हीप अपॉइंट किया हुआ है वो पॉलिटिकल पार्टी व्हीप अपॉइंट कर सकती है, और इलेक्शन कमीशन के निर्णय के हिसाब से पॉलिटिकल पार्टी एकनाथ शिंदे, माननीय मुख्यमंत्री एकनाथ शिंदे साहब के पास अभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के राइट्स है, तो पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के हिसाब से जो भरत शेठ गोगावले है, जो हमारे व्हीप है, वो ऑफिशियली है, उसका निर्णय अभी स्पीकर लेंगे। माननीय न्यायालय ने ये भी कहा कि जो भी अपॉइंटमेंट है वो पॉलिटिकल
योग्य होणार नाही। जी काही उत्सुकता होती की महाराष्ट्राचं सरकार स्थिर राहणार की नाही, ही सुप्रीम कोर्टाच्या या निकालामुळे दूर झालेली आहे। आणि ज्या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडीज आहेत त्याच्या फंक्शनमध्ये सुप्रीम कोर्टाने कुठलाही हस्तक्षेप केलेला नाही। हा एका अर्थाने लोकशाहीचा आणि भारताच्या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनचा फार मोठा विजय आहे असं मी स्वतः समजतो। आणि ती जी एक आपल्या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनचं जी महत्त्व आहे ती सुप्रीम कोर्टाने कायम ठेवली।
सर हिंदी में बोलिएगा यही बात कि जिस तरह से फैसला आया है उसके ऊपर आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया है? गवर्नर को फटकार लगाई है, और आप जिस तरह से 16 विधायकों की अयोग्यता का मामला था उसमें अब उन्होंने जो है स्पीकर के पास सब कुछ जो है आधिकारिक टाइम फ्रेम में करने के लिए फैसला दिया है। हिंदी में कंटिन्यू करें स्लाइड।
थोड़ा सा मुझे यही कहना है कि ज़्यादा उत्कंठा लोगों को ये रहती है कि ये सरकार चलेगी या नहीं। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये जो फैसला दिया है वो लोकशाही के हित में है कि सरकार जो अपॉइंट की गई वो जो ऑन द फ्लोर ऑफ हाउस अपॉइंट की गई उसको उन्होंने सही यहाँ पे ये किया है कि ये सरकार आगे चल सकती है। एक बहुत बड़ा रिलीफ महाराष्ट्र के लिए है। किसी भी राज्य के लिए एक स्थिर सरकार होना बहुत ज़रूरी होता है, और जो भी फैसला होना है वो अध्यक्ष जी को लेना है। वो भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अथॉरिटीज़ है, चाहे वो अध्यक्ष जी हो जो असेंबली के अध्यक्ष हैं, या तो वो इलेक्शन कमीशन हो, ये सब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अथॉरिटीज़ है। और ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी माना है कि उनको इंडिपेंडेंटली काम करना चाहिए, और जो काम आगे चलेगा उसके भी लिए उन्होंने कभी भी रोक नहीं लगाई है। हालांकि व्हीप के बारे में उन्होंने जो निर्णय लिया है तो व्हीप क्लेम कर सकता है, और वो जो क्लेम कर रहा है वो उसकी वजह से डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन होता है या नहीं, उसका निर्णय भी सब लोगों का जो कहना है वो सुनने के बाद अध्यक्ष जी को लेना है, तो वो सही फैसला लेंगे ऐसे हम लोग उम्मीद करते हैं। तो जो संकट महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट पे विरोधी पक्ष लाना चाहते थे वो तो फिलहाल टल गया है। लेकिन सर लोगों के हित में ये सरकार काम कर सकती है।
सर सवाल ये है कि जिस तरह से गवर्नर के काम को बहुत फटकार लगाई गई है उस पर क्या कहना चाहेंगे सर? गवर्नर ने बिना किसी प्रूफ के फ्लोर टेस्ट की बात कही, जिसको लेकर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने फटकार लगाई जा रहा है।
देखिए, आप जहाँ तक सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जहाँ तक मैं सुन रहा था, तो चाहे वो फैसला अगर उद्धव जी अपना रेजिग्नेशन नहीं देते तो ही उसके बारे में कुछ हो सकता था, लेकिन उन्होंने तो रेजिग्नेशन दिया, ये फैक्ट है। तो अभी इसके बारे में कुछ क्लेम करना गलत है। या तो आगे चल के जो भी गवर्नर आएंगे वो इस तरह का फैसला देते हुए ये जो रिमार्क्स है उसके बारे में सोच के वो अपना फैसला दे देंगे। इतना ही इसका मतलब, मैं जहाँ तक मैं समझता हूँ इतना ही मतलब इसमें है। ताशेरे ओढलेले नाही, आपण एक लक्षात घ्या, न्यायालयाने असं म्हटलेलं आहे की पॉलिटिकल पार्टी
आहेत हे आज अतिशय स्पष्ट झालंय। तिसरी गोष्ट, राज्यपालांनी जे अधिवेशनाच्या संदर्भात फ्लोर टेस्टचे जे आदेश दिले होते हे गैरपद्धतीने होते, कारण सबळ पुराव्याच्या अभावी, सबळ डॉक्युमेंटच्या अभावी अशा प्रकारे राज्यपालांना फ्लोर टेस्ट बोलवता येत नाही। केवळ काही आमदारांनी पत्र दिलं म्हणून फ्लोर टेस्ट बोलवता येत नाही।
The court has observed the way governor has called for that particular floor test. It is completely wrong, and it was not as per the rules, because before doing that he should have consulted with the Council of Ministers, because that is the duty of Governor to keep in touch with the Council of Ministers and CM, and with after the discussion with them, then only he should do it. So that is right now he is explaining in Marathi. Anil Parab, with whom we yesterday spoke.
आता ज्या अध्यक्षांच्या समोर जाईल त्याच्यामध्ये सुनील प्रभू हेच व्हीप असतील आणि सुनील प्रभूने दिलेले आदेश.
So right now he's saying that though this matter has been referred to the Speaker of the Assembly, but Sunil Prabhu has been appointed as a whip, so that's why it is very much clear that those who have basically denied the whip of Sunil Prabhu during that time are eligible for the disqualification. That is a clear-cut interpretation which Shiv Sena party leader Anil Prabhu is explaining. Anil Parab is explaining.
सभा अध्यक्षांनी योग्य तो निर्णय घ्यावा. त्यामुळे एकंदर या सगळ्या
about the merger also he's saying that the court has asked the legislative assembly speaker to take a decision.
पासून वाचू शकत नाही आणि या 16 आमदारांच्या पाठोपाठ.
So Anil Parab is basically very much confident that the 16 MLAs against whom the disqualification plea has been filed, they cannot save right now because everything is against them after the SC order. He's also saying that if all the 16 MLAs get disqualified, then certainly the remaining 39 MLAs.
Okay, my colleague Mayuresh, who was actually providing us with that translation, is with us right now in Mumbai. He's joining us from Maharashtra itself. Let's check in with him. Mayuresh, the Uddhav Thackeray-led faction must be heartbroken right now to hear from the Supreme Court that the Eknath Shinde-led faction and the Maharashtra governor didn't act per law, but that they can't restore the Thackeray government. Walk us through the mood right now. What are your sources telling you is the mood right now in the Uddhav Thackeray-led faction?
Absolutely, the Uddhav Thackeray faction right now is in hurdle, and what we just heard from Mr. Anil Parab, he was explaining that what court has said, but they are confident that on two issues. One, their whip has been reinstated, which means the Bharat Gogale, who was appointed as a whip and who had issued the orders, now he is a legal whip, and legal whip is Sunil Prabhu. So Shiv Sena is confident that that time when they had issued the whip, the Sunil Prabhu had issued the whip, those who didn't follow that whip have to face that disqualification. That is Shiv Sena banking on. So, but the important aspect here about the whip is that if you remember when Bharat Gogale had issued the whip, after that the election of speaker had taken place. So if Bharat Gogale's whip has been declared as illegal, then there is a question that whether the election which happened for the post of speaker is also in the question. So that clarity we are yet to get from the Supreme Court, or once we get the detailed order, we'll have that clarity. But that is a very important issue, because Supreme Court has already said that Bharat Gogale is illegal whip, he is not a legal whip, and Sunil Prabhu is a legal whip. So if you ask me about the Shiv Sena, yes, Shiv Sena is banking on this particular aspect about the whip. Yesterday also, if you remember, when we spoke with Anil Parab before he was about to leave to Delhi, he clearly said that we are banking on 10th schedule and also on the issue of the whip, because if we get the whip, our whip gets decided as illegal, then certainly those who didn't follow that whip will have to face the disqualification.
Okay, just stay with us. I want to go over to our colleague Siddhant, who's also with us live right now from Mumbai. Siddhant, I want to come to you now to understand what the BJP's leaders have had to say. We haven't heard from any leader yet on the show. What are sources telling you is the mood? Because the Supreme Court hasn't held back at all in the kind of language they've used to admonish the actions that led to the formation of this government. How is the BJP responding?
Well, look, I did manage to speak to some people post this verdict by the Supreme Court, and those who understand the politics of Maharashtra very well, those who have been following it, the politics of Maharashtra very well, are saying that it is a moral victory for Uddhav Thackeray and a real victory for Eknath Shinde, because the fear that was in the mind of the incumbent government was that what if 16 MLAs get disqualified? or maybe some time frame will be given to Speaker to disqualify the MLAs, or some sort of action takes place. That was the biggest fear in the minds. The second and the most important was that anything in order, if anything goes in favor of Uddhav Thackeray. But going by the order that has been pronounced by Honorable Supreme Court, it looks like that Supreme Court has very clearly stated that there cannot be any possibility of reinstating Uddhav Thackeray as the Chief Minister, because he resigned himself. He did not face the floor test. And the second most important observation which was made by the Supreme Court was that Supreme Court did raise questions on the conduct of the governor. The governor did not have enough material to act, and despite that, governor acted. But at the same time, Supreme Court also said that since the Shinde faction has been recognized as a political party, so these two key observations by the Supreme Court establishes that the government in Maharashtra is safe. The MLAs of Eknath Shinde are safe, and this is perhaps the reason that right now we are getting to know that at around 2 p.m. Eknath Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis both are going to address joint press conference, and they are going to take questions from the media on this entire verdict that has come from the Supreme Court.
Siddhant, thank you. Siddhant put it beautifully right now when he said a moral victory for the Uddhav Thackeray-led faction, but possibly a very real victory for the Eknath Shinde-led faction. Let's go over to my colleague Vinaya Deshpande, our Mumbai Bureau Chief, who's with us right now from outside Matushri, which is of course Uddhav Thackeray's residence. Vinaya, explain to me, behind the scenes, how is the Thackeray faction processing this? What do they do with this so-called moral victory? That's question one. And question two, Vinaya, if you could now walk our audiences down the memory lane. In June 2022, what led to Uddhav Thackeray making the decision not to go to resign? That decision now has the spotlight on it. What led to that decision when it was made?
Well, absolutely. It's a heartbreaking decision, really. It's a heartbreaking verdict for the Thackeray group, which was hoping that there would be some way in which it will be reinstated back to power, and that Mahavikas Aghadi would get another opportunity to be in the government. Clearly, with this judgment, it has been dashed. Remember, this is something that Uddhav Thackeray was advised since the beginning. In fact, on the day, I remember that when this whole political drama was unfolding and we were all rushing to the assembly in order to witness the floor test, there were questions raised on whether Uddhav Thackeray will face the floor test or not. He suddenly called for a Facebook Live in which he addressed the people of Maharashtra, in which he announced his decision to resign, something that has cost the MVA quite dear. In fact, both the Congress as well as the NCP were upset with him for taking this unilateral decision. Uddhav Thackeray, who was a novice player with respect to the Legislative Assembly, he had never been into electoral politics. He had always worked as a remote control for the party, and that was exactly the difference, because he saw this as a huge ignominy for himself and for the party, and he had preferred to not face the floor test and had instead chosen to resign. This very decision, a unilateral decision, a decision which Uddhav Thackeray took without consulting any of his alliance partners, without consulting any of his party leaders, is exactly the decision that has cost the Mahavikas Aghadi dear. With this kind of a moral victory, it is disheartening for them that the government will not be restored. The only gleam of hope is about the whip, the chief whip, who will possibly be Sunil Prabhu now, and that will lead to a lot of changes on the floor of the house. So clearly at this juncture, when there will be, as we speak, Sanjay Raut has just entered in order to meet Uddhav Thackeray here at Matoshri. As you can see the live visuals on your screen, this is Sanjay Raut here, who has come from his residence in order to meet Uddhav Thackeray. There will now be a meeting of the MLAs here. Several MPs also who have now made a beeline at Matoshri after the Supreme Court verdict. This is an important day today, not just because, we are seeing Sanjay Raut is coming out to give a bite to the media. Let us get a reaction from him. Let us try and understand what he has to say on this whole political drama. But at this juncture, it is important to see that, with this, we are here at Matoshri, where there is a lot of political cacophony that is going on. Sanjay Raut.
लेकिन सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है जो सरकार है कोई आपातकालीन कोई गैर कानूनी है वो बेकायदेशीर है तो सरकार बची क्या है। अगर थोड़ी भी नैतिकता होगी तो शिंदे फडणवीस इस्तीफा दे देंगे।
That was Sanjay Raut who was saying that
what is the meaning of that? That is to be decided by the appropriate authorities. Both can have different whips, but the particular whip that was issued by the then whip of the current Uddhav Thackeray, what he wants to say, whether it is legal or illegal, that is to be decided by the Speaker of the House. And in that case, whether a meeting which is not called on the floor of the House, whether it is mandatory on the legislators to attend it or not, that those all points would be come before them. At that time, he could take an appropriate decision.
So the decision has been given to the Speaker. Do you think the Speaker would, in his right mind, uphold the decision in your favor?
Why I should say that? He should listen to everybody and then should give an appropriate decision, which is as per the law.
So lastly, Supreme Court also mentioned that you all had on the behalf, like Eknath Shinde on your behalf had reached out to the governor, but the role of governor was also questioned. There was no way there was mentioned that you all were moving out of Shiv Sena. There was only a mention that you all were unhappy with Shiv Sena and there was no move to mode of MVA. So what do you have to say on that?
No, whatever Supreme Court has said, nobody could make a comment on the Supreme Court. However, the guidelines given by them would be applicable to the future decisions, because here no floor test has taken place and a resignation was submitted. That is the usual tactics of Uddhavji to create a wave of sympathy in his favor. He always thinks of politics and not about the democracy. That's why he has given the resignation, to create a sympathy among his supporters. And there he took a wrong step and he has paid for that. Once you are giving the resignation and you are yourself claiming that restore me back on that position, it is not possible, which is clearly mentioned by the Supreme Court, and that is good enough to teach him a lesson that he should not behave like this to create just a sympathy among the people.
With that, we had Deepak Kesarkar, who's been the spokesperson for Eknath Shinde faction all throughout. He, in fact, has also repeated the same thing that Supreme Court had mentioned, wherein he said that giving his resignation was a way of Uddhav Thackeray to get sympathy from people. We've seen that Supreme Court was also quite critical of the fact that Uddhav Thackeray had resigned, which is why the status quo could not be maintained.
शिवालय शिवसेना एमपीज विद अस। शिवालय साहब, कितना रिलीफ आप मानते हैं ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट की तरफ से आज?
बहुत बड़ा रिलीफ है, क्योंकि महाराष्ट्र में जो पॉलिटिकल एटमॉस्फेयर जो खराब हुआ था और एक गंदी राजनीति महाराष्ट्र में चल रही थी, वो भी खत्म हो जाएगी और एक हिस्टोरिकल डिसीजन है। इस डिसीजन की वजह से जितने भी रीजनल पार्टी है उनको एक सबक मिलेगा, क्योंकि आप देखेंगे जितने रीजनल पार्टी है वो फैमिली परिवार चला लिया, और परिवार अगर डिसीजन लेती है कि हम जो उनकी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के विचार है, उसको छोड़ के अपोजिशन के अगर साथ परिवार जाएगा तो पार्टी नहीं जाएगी, पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता नहीं जाएगी। ये सबक ये डिसीजन के माध्यम से मिलेगा।
बट सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बड़ी क्रिटिकल टिप्पणियां की हैं गवर्नर के रोल के ऊपर।
गवर्नर के रोल पे, क्योंकि लेकिन गवर्नर ने वो वहाँ पे क्रिटिकल सिचुएशन थी, और जो भी गवर्नर ने डिसीजन लिया था वो लीगल ओपिनियन लेके ही, उनके लीगल एडवाइजर को लेके डिसीजन लिया था।
लेकिन अब आपके लिए अगर हम देखें तो हालांकि आपकी जो है वो सरकार वहाँ पे बच गई है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन आगे की जो अब रहा है वो कैसे देखते हैं आप?
आगे स्पीकर का रोल इसमें इम्पोर्टेंट है। स्पीकर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का रेफरेंस लेके ही सब अपॉइंटमेंट और डिसीजन लेंगे। और इसमें इलेक्शन कमीशन ने इसके पहले जो डिसीजन लिया था वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है। इलेक्शन कमीशन ने जो डिसीजन लिया था कि शिवसेना के पूरे राइट्स माननीय एकनाथ शिंदे साहब के पास रहेंगे, सिंबल भी एकनाथ शिंदे साहब के पास रहेंगे, तो वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट डिसीजन है। पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के रेफरेंस के हिसाब से स्पीकर डिसीजन लेंगे।
आपको लगता है कि उद्धव ठाकरे से गलती हो गई क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि फ्लो टेस्ट में तो उन्होंने पार्टिसिपेट ही नहीं किया, वो गलती बहुत बड़ी उन्होंने की है?
वो पहले ही हम लोग ने कहा, हमारा सबमिशन ही था कि वो रिजाइन नहीं देते तो ये सिचुएशन नहीं आती थी। उन्होंने रिजाइन देने की वजह से ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रॉब्लम है।
लेकिन संजय राव तो अभी भी आपके ऊपर निशाना साध रहे हैं, कह रहा मॉरल ग्राउंड पे आपको।
पागल है, पागल आदमी के बारे में टिप्पणी करना उचित नहीं।
ठीक है, बहुत
एक मिनट।
Well, the first reaction there coming in from the Shinde faction after what we've heard from the top court. Reactions coming in. Let's listen in.
देखिए, आप लोग सब बोले जा, nobody will speak. Please, if you speak, you are delaying yourself. Please don't speak. I will do Hindi, English, Maharashtra, NCT both. Just be patient for 10 minutes, please. देखिए, आज दो रुक जाओ ना यार, ये आप ही के लोगों को तो बोलिए ना, आप तो अपने लोग ही आपके सब काट करते नहीं, चलता रहेगा। आवाज जो बोलेगा तो हो ही नहीं पाएगा। यार जब तक आप बोलेंगे शुरू नहीं हो सकता।
आप ठीक है, चलिए।
भाइयों और बहनों, आज संविधान पीठ के दो अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय आए हैं। संविधान पीठ ने विस्तृत रूप से सब अपने निष्कर्ष लिखे हैं कारणों के साथ। महाराष्ट्र के विषय में जितने भी मूल मुद्दे हैं कानून के, वो हमारे पक्ष में हुए हैं। राज्यपाल का निर्णय गलत है। उन्होंने ऐसे तथ्यों को देखा जो नहीं थे वहां पर, जो वो नहीं देख सकते थे। राज्यपाल का निर्णय को गलत करार किया गया। स्पीकर का निर्णय, जिन्होंने किसी और की विप को ऊपर आधार पर अपना निर्णय किया, उसको गलत माना है। विप गोगावले के नियुक्ति को गलत माना है। ये कहा है कि विप सिर्फ राजनीतिक पार्टी की हो सकती है, न कि वो विधायिका पार्टी की हो। तो हर महत्वपूर्ण कानूनी मुद्दे पे सत्य की विजय हुई है। हम नमन करते हैं उच्चतम न्यायालय को। ये बात सही है कि माननीय उद्धव ठाकरे जो उस वक्त मुख्यमंत्री थे, उन्होंने इस्तीफा दिया, इसलिए उनको रिलीफ नहीं दी। लेकिन आज सबसे महत्वपूर्ण निष्कर्ष क्या है कि माननीय स्पीकर को तुरंत निर्णय करना है कम समय में डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशन का। तो मैं आपसे एक प्रश्न पूछना चाहता हूं कि डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशन का निर्णय तो एक ही हो सकता है। उन्होंने विप का अस्वीकारिता की, लोगों ने, उन्होंने विप का उल्लंघन किया। तो जब आपने विप का उल्लंघन किया तो क्या बचा? माननीय स्पीकर को तुरंत उस आधार पर डिस्क्वालीफाई करना चाहिए और इसी से न्याय होगा, सत्य की विजय होगी। जहां तक एनसीटी का सवाल है, एक ऐसी सिचुएशन, और ये किसी राजनीतिक पार्टी की बात नहीं है, कल कांग्रेस होगी, आज आप है, कल बीजेपी होगी। आपने दिल्ली को ये स्वरूप दिया जिससे वहां स्वायत्व हो, यहां पर ऑटोनॉमी हो। आज स्वायत्त और दिल्ली की विजय है। दिल्ली के हर उस तौर तरीके से जिसमें केंद्र सरकार ने गलत रूप से हस्तक्षेप किया है, उसको निरस्त किया गया है इस निर्णय द्वारा। और इसमें हर पक्ष में कोई सिंगल ऐसा पक्ष नहीं है, मुझे सौभाग्य था इसका दलील करने का, और कोई हमारा ऐसा पक्ष नहीं है जिसको मना किया गया हो। मैं समझता हूं कि जो सर्विसेज हैं, जो यहाँ के काम हैं, अब बिना अवरुद्ध होने के, बिना उल्लंघन के, बिना विलंब के, बिना तू मैं आरोप प्रत्यारोप के जल्द होंगे, क्योंकि इसका फायदा है नागरिक दिल्ली का। फ्रेंड्स, I'll very briefly tell you in English, this is a historic day, two major judgments of the Constitution Bench, very detailed, very organized, indexed with conclusions. As far as Maharashtra is concerned, every major substantive finding has been in favor of the side we were representing. The governor's decision is wrong because it is based on irrelevant considerations. The speaker's recognition is of the wrong whip. The whip has to be by a political party, not a legislature party, etc., etc. Now, it is true that the Honorable CM at that time resigned before the floor test, and therefore he has been denied relief. But the point of the matter is different. The point is there is a specific direction that disqualification petitions pending must be decided expeditiously. I want to ask myself, as a student of law, the Honorable Speaker must necessarily decide the disqualification petitions by holding these persons to be disqualified for the simple reason that they have acted contrary to a whip. The whip is of the political party, not the Eknath Shinde faction in the legislature. And if that whip is violated, how is it that for one day the Honorable Speaker can delay that decision? I think it's a victory for the people of Maharashtra, it's a victory for justice, it's a victory for the Constitution, it's a victory for the sovereignty of the legislature, its elected representatives, the 10th schedule. We hope and trust that the Speaker will not delay because of partisan political reasons and will decide very quickly. As far as NCT is concerned, it is an even more significant judgment. It is ultimately a victory for Delhi, for autonomy. You made Delhi for what reason? You made Delhi with autonomy because you wanted to give it a status. It is not merely a union territory. It is a union territory with a special constitutional status not available to other union territories. Now this judgment on every count, has made it clear that barring the 3 prohibited excluded areas, in all other areas, the LG must act on the aid and advice of the state government. I hope and trust that the unnecessary pinpricks, and this is not about party A or party B. Tomorrow the BJP may be in power in Delhi and not in the centre.
Well, we continue to track the big story that's coming out of Maharashtra, which is what we've heard from the top court today. In a nutshell, the court essentially has questioned the move of Uddhav Thackeray of deciding to resign before he faced a floor test. So that is why the court has said, because Uddhav Thackeray did not face a floor test, status quo cannot be got back or the clock cannot be turned back in time. The other big takeaway from what we've heard from the court is they've also questioned the role of the governor as well as the speaker. But as of now, politically speaking, the Shinde faction remains, the government also remains. We'll be getting reactions coming in from Uddhav Thackeray shortly. He'll be holding a press conference and then a press conference that will be coming in from the Shinde faction as well. Let's also now bring in our colleagues to try and understand what's the future as far as politics in Maharashtra is concerned. Let's first bring in Vinay Deshpande. We also have Yesha, Siddhant and Ananya who are also tracking all these developments. Vinaya, going back to the time when this decision was taken, when Uddhav Thackeray decided that no, I'm not going to go for a floor test because I do not have the numbers, I am going to resign. That decision essentially has become a nail in the coffin for him of what we've heard from the top court. Talk to us about the reactions that are already coming in from the Uddhav camp, if any.
Well, Ridhima, you're absolutely right. This, in fact, is a heartbreaking moment for the Uddhav Thackeray faction because, remember, the Supreme Court has passed extremely scathing comments against the role of the governor, against the way the speaker took a call, about the way, the whip of the party functioned and the way it was changed, clearly saying that the governor should have gone beyond what was there in order to find out what the objective truth was and not subjectively, see what the reality was. So in that sense, we are seeing that while Uddhav Thackeray faction has been claiming that this is a huge moral victory for them, well, of course it is. But rewinding back to that time when the whole issue had erupted and when there was a floor test which was called, there was a no confidence motion that was moved by the opposition. At that very juncture, at a time when everybody was readying to see how the floor test will go ahead, Uddhav Thackeray, before reaching the assembly and before facing the floor test, went ahead, called for a Facebook Live and announced his resignation. At that time as well, I remember it was an extremely anxious 1.5 hour. We were all trying to gauge last year as to what the response of the government will be, especially after, Fadnavis and Shinde had already garnered the support of several MLAs. At that juncture, it was to be seen on whether the floor test will be faced or not. And while, we had seen that several factors within the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi had then claimed that it was important to face the floor test and preparations were going on in that aspect. just some time before the floor test, Uddhav Thackeray had called for a Facebook Live and had declared his resignation. Now remember, that particular call later was criticized, and just recently even Sharad Pawar had openly said that that was one big mistake and that it was done without consulting anybody of us, and that was a unilateral decision. For somebody who has not been into legislative politics for a long time, for somebody who was a novice with respect to the legislative affairs, remember this was the first term of Uddhav Thackeray as a legislator, this inexperience cost his government dear, and though they now claim a moral victory of sorts, this is clearly disheartening because there is no change absolutely on ground.
Interesting choice of words, a moral victory as far as the Uddhav camp is concerned, but no change as far as the government is concerned, so the Shinde faction is safe. I'll just request all our colleagues to stay on with us. We're slipping into a very short break. We're coming back to this big political story.
The last 7 days. Now, according to central agency sources, a kind of potassium chlorate was actually possibly used in the making of the explosion itself. Sources have further said that the blast seems to be more to provoke than to harm, with the timing of the last two blasts coinciding with the fact that there were lesser people in the area because it took place early in the morning. Now, the Punjab Police DGP is expected to brief the media over all of these attacks. Let's take a look. This is a walkthrough, a ground report that my colleague Rajiv Sharma brought us from the ground. Take a look.
मंदिर साहिब के बिल्कुल पास श्री गुरु रामदास सराय में एक धमाका होता है। 12:10 पर इसकी सूचना पुलिस को मिलती है और पुलिस कमिश्नर खुद मौके पर पहुंचते हैं। तो इस समय हम उसी जगह पर मौजूद हैं। आप देख सकते हैं कि श्री गुरु रामदास जो सराय है उसका बिल्कुल ये पिछला हिस्सा है और आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर गलियारा जो बना हुआ है जहाँ पर जो लोग हैं वो सैर करते हैं। तो इसी इलाके में कहा जा रहा है कि रात को तीसरा जो ब्लास्ट है वो हुआ था। जैसे पुलिस को जानकारी मिली तो पुलिस कमिश्नर नौनिहाल सिंह खुद यहाँ पर पहुंचे। उसके बाद जांच जो है वो शुरू की गई।
हमारे को रात को 12 बजे के आसपास, 12:15 के आसपास यहाँ पे इंटीमेशन आई थी कि यहाँ पे एक लाउड साउंड हैज बीन हर्ड। इट इज सस्पेक्टेड दैट देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि एक एक्सप्लोजन और हुआ है, बट बिकॉज अभी अंधेरा है और ये इस बिल्डिंग के पीछे हुआ है, वहाँ पे अभी तक एक कंफर्म नहीं हो पाया है कि वेदर इट इज अ ब्लास्ट और कोई और इंसिडेंट है। आर FSL टीम इज ऑन द स्पॉट, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं एंड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स, एज पार्ट जो हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, हम सस्पेक्ट्स को राउंड अप कर रहे हैं, लोगों को वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं, पूछताछ कर रहे हैं।
बड़े लंबे समय तो मैं देख रहा भी ਜਦੋਂ भी कोई सीरियसली घटना ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ। ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਫਿਰਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2-4 ਦਿਨ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2 ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬਲਾਸਟ ਹੋਏ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਬਲਾਸਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਦਿਲਚਸਪੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਈ। ਇਹ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਵੱਜ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਹੈਗੇ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ। ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਤੱਥ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਤੱਥ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਲੇ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੇ, ਪਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਚੇਚੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਡੰਗਾਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਸਾਜ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਨੰਗੀ ਕਰੋ।
Like Aam Aadmi Party, Bhagwant Mann should spend more time on focusing on the law and order situation of the state rather than arresting journalists who show the truth of the mirror of truth to the entire Kejriwal and Bhagwant Mann establishment.
सर कैसे ऐसा हुआ जहां पर एक्सप्लोजन हुआ है जो अमृतसर साहिब के।
Okay, we're now moving to more details in this same case. This is a Sena News 18 exclusive on the Amritsar blast probe. Remember, we told you that 5 people.
Welcome back. Thanks a lot for staying with us. We continue to track the big political story that's coming in from Maharashtra and what we've heard from the top court today. Essentially, they've questioned the move of Uddhav Thackeray deciding to resign without facing a floor test. But what the Supreme Court has also done, and not mincing any words, have questioned the role of the governor as well as the speaker. So what does this mean for the Shinde faction? That states as of now. We'll be getting press conferences that will be coming in from both the camps. So it will be interesting to see what we hear from the leaders. Let's also bring in our colleagues. Vinaya Deshpande continues to be with us. Yesha Kotak also continues to be with us. Yesha, while Vinaya was, just saying something very interesting before we slipped into a short break, that Uddhav camp can see this as a moral victory, but the real victory still is for the Shinde faction because there is no disqualification and their government stays. Okay, I believe we've lost that connection with Yesha, but let's also bring in our legal correspondent Ananya Bhatnagar, who's also now joining us. So Ananya, there are two aspects here. Politically speaking, the move of Uddhav Thackeray has been questioned, that why did he want to resign before actually facing a floor test. But the Supreme Court has also minced no words in terms of questioning the actions that have been taken by the governor and the speaker. So let's break it down simply for our viewers. First, as far as the role of the governor is concerned, what are these specific actions that have been questioned by the court today?
Gogavle, as in fact, in choosing, in fact, the right whip for between the legislative party and the political party was incorrect and illegal, is what the Supreme Court had to say. Another important thing that the Supreme Court had to say was that the governor's actions were not right. The governor had no objective material to actually say that, these people wanted to leave that particular party, though they were unsatisfied with the party, but they did not mention that they want to leave the political party itself. So very clearly it has been said that though the governor was a little wrong on its part on calling for in fact a floor test, or it was in fact the speaker who was wrong in doing so, but at the end of the day, when Uddhav Thackeray resigned, the whole matrix of the matter changed. And since Uddhav Thackeray had himself resigned even before facing a floor test in this particular case, the status quo ante cannot be changed. Though there were some wrongdoings that happened, there were some illegal acts that happened, there were some actions which were unlawful, but at the same point of time, since Uddhav Thackeray resigned from his post as the chief minister and did not wish to face the floor test, he in fact has no remedy available. But at the same point of that, the only two directions that the Supreme Court now has is one for the speaker, that he has to decide the disqualification petitions with regards to these lawmakers in a time-bound manner. Second is that the Namam Rebia judgment of the Supreme Court on the clear aspect of whether the speaker can actually decide onto disqualification proceedings when a notice of removal is moved against him is to be referred to a 7-judges bench. The matter, though, would not have any kind of a ramification on the current scenario in the state of Maharashtra, but would be a landmark one when it comes to anti-defection law, when it comes to the functioning of the political parties and how the functioning of the democracy and the federal structure of the country actually works. Definitely, this is a landmark judgment, but at the same time, it is somewhere a sigh of sadness for, in fact, Uddhav Thackeray, since nothing can change at this point of time.
Agreed with the point that Ananya is making, that it is going to be extremely unfortunate and sad for the Uddhav camp that nothing really has changed because the Shinde government still stays. Let's bring Yesha also in the conversation. Yesha, while the Shinde camp today will be relieved that there is no disqualification that has happened, their government still stays in place. But a lot of questions have also been raised as far as the role of the governor is concerned. What is the Shinde faction saying as far as those questions that have been raised by the Supreme Court?
So in fact, while we spoke to Deepak Kesarkar, who's been the spokesperson for Shinde faction ever since day one, right now they've expressed confidence because they say that a stable government is required for Maharashtra to progress. The fact that their government still stays is a relief for the Shinde faction right now. However, when questions are being raised, when it comes to the chief whip, which was questioned by Supreme Court, apart from that, decision of governor being questioned by Supreme Court, the reaction is that going further, considering that the decision now lies in the hand of the speaker, there'll be a right decision that would be made in this case. We've seen that Supreme Court clearly stated that the decision of a chief whip, Bharat Gogavle, was in fact nullified by the Supreme Court. They clearly said that Bharat Gogavle cannot be the chief whip. Apart from that, what was also mentioned was that governor had taken certain decisions while all of these MLAs who had gone over to Shinde faction, it was Eknath Shinde who had written this letter to governor, but there was no desire that was expressed by these people that they would want to move out of MVA. This was something that was questioned and which was quite prominent, and when we'd spoken to Shinde faction leaders, they said that while they were working with Sena, they were not very happy with it. In fact, the idea about Uddhav Thackeray leaving his position, resigning from his position, was something that was brought up again by Shinde faction leaders. They mentioned clearly that Uddhav Thackeray had done so out just to gain sympathy, and which is where we've seen the correlation with what Supreme Court had also mentioned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just going back to Vinaya also on the aspect of what the Supreme Court has said as far as the resignation of Uddhav Thackeray is concerned. And Vinaya, just help our viewers understand. Today, the Shinde faction is saying that Uddhav Thackeray did what he did because he wanted to create a victim narrative. He wanted to garner some sympathy. But going back in time when this decision was made, Uddhav Thackeray possibly felt that he just didn't have the numbers, so why should I face the floor test? What is the kind of advice that was given to him? Who were the people who were advising him? Because if I remember correctly, even Sharad Pawar had recently said that none of us had an idea that Uddhav, in fact, is going to resign.
You're absolutely right.
Vinaya, I apologize for interrupting. Just stay on with us. We're getting some footage also now coming in, some visuals on our screens as well. This is Uddhav Thackeray meeting Nitish Kumar as well as Tejasvi Yadav. And all of these visuals are coming in from Matoshri. You can see Aditya Thackeray in the frame also. You can see Sanjay Raut also. So you have a meeting that's happening between Uddhav Thackeray, Nitish Kumar, Tejasvi Yadav, Aditya Thackeray on our screens as well. Vinay, just talking about these visuals first, help us understand, was this a pre-planned meeting?
You know, we had been showing the visuals some time ago about how Nitish Kumar had entered Matoshri just a while ago. This is a meeting that was pre-planned. Remember, Nitish Kumar is here today along with Tejasvi Yadav. This is an important meeting in order to garner opposition unity. Nitish Kumar is meeting Uddhav Thackeray right now. He will meet Sharad Pawar thereafter. Uddhav Thackeray, Nitish Kumar, Aditya Thackeray are expected to have a meeting over lunch here at Matoshri. As you can see on your visuals right now, there's a press conference which will be addressed by all of them, wherein Uddhav Thackeray will speak about his first response on the Supreme Court verdict that has
Vinay, I apologize for interrupting once again. We in fact have the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker Rahul Navdekar now joining us on the broadcast. Sir, appreciate you taking out the time and joining us here. Your first reaction to what we've heard that's coming from the Supreme Court, first questioning the role of Uddhav Thackeray deciding to resign without a floor test. Sir, can you hear me? Okay, we seem to have lost that connection. We'll try and re-establish that. But going back to Vinay, I apologize for interrupting. Please go ahead.
Well, yes. In fact, as I was telling you that this was a meeting that was already, planned, and that is why Nitish Kumar is here. He is meeting Uddhav Thackeray. Thereafter, he will meet Sharad Pawar as well. This is being seen as an important step in order to garner the opposition unity, wherein a meeting is going to be held in Delhi. And Nitish Kumar is believed to be here to invite both the strong regional leaders to be there for that meeting. Remember,
लढवय्या शब्द वापरल्यानंतर इथे त्यांचा येण्याचा हेतू हा आपल्याला सगळ्यांना कळला असेल. देशामध्ये एकूणच लोकशाहीची हत्या होते की काय असं चित्र दिसतंय आणि लोकशाही वाचवण्यासाठी सर्वच नुसते मी विरोधी हा शब्द नाही वापरणार. जे लोकशाहीची हत्या करू इच्छितात त्यांचे विरोधी असे सगळे देशप्रेमी पक्ष आणि जनता एकत्र करण्याचे जे आमचे प्रयत्न सुरू आहेत,
which opposition,
आणखी बळकट करण्यासाठी
the parties which are trying to unite all the people,
आलेले त्यांच्या सगळ्यांचं मी स्वागत करतोय.
That is why, in order to strengthen these efforts, Nitish Kumar, Tejasvi Yadav are all here.
एका गोष्टीचं समाधान आहे. मी वारंवार असं म्हटलं होतं की सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाचा निकाल हा केवळ शिवसेनेच्या भवितव्याचा नसेल, तर तो आपल्या देशातल्या लोकशाहीच्या बद्दल, लोकशाही जिवंत राहणार की नाही याबद्दलचा असेल. आणि माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने आज जो निकाल दिलेला आहे त्याच्यामध्ये एकूणच सत्तेसाठी हपापलेल्या लोकांचं उघडं नागडं राजकारण हे त्यांनी त्याची पूर्णपणे चिरफाड केली. सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं म्हणजे राज्यपाल महोदयांची जी भूमिका होती ती संशयास्पद, आता त्या संशयास्पद म्हणायला सुद्धा काही अर्थ राहिलेला नाही. ती सरळ सरळ अयोग्य होती. राज्यपालांच्या भूमिकेचं सुद्धा वस्त्रहरण झालेलं आहे. मग ते दिल्लीच्या बाबतीत असेल, इथल्या बाबतीत असेल, आणि राज्यपाल ही यंत्रणा ही एक आतापर्यंत आदरयुक्त अशी यंत्रणा होती, पण राज्यपाल यंत्रणेचे धिंडवडे ज्या पद्धतीने शासनकर्ते काढतायत ते बघितल्यानंतर आता याच्या पुढे राज्यपाल यंत्रणा ही अस्तित्वात ठेवावी की नाही हा सुद्धा एक मोठा विचार मला असं वाटतं सर्वोच्च न्यायालयापुढे आपल्याला न्यायला पाहिजे.
System of governor should be kept alive or not is something that needs to be decided now.
राज्यपालांना अधिवेशन बोलवण्याचा अधिकार नव्हता, त्यांनी बोलवण्याची गरज नव्हती वगैरे वगैरे सगळे आता आपण डिटेलमध्ये गेल्यानंतर कळेल. पण अपात्रतेचा निर्णय हा त्यांनी अध्यक्षांवरती जरी सोपवला असला तरी पक्षादेश हा त्यावेळेचा जो पक्ष म्हणजे माझी शिवसेना त्या शिवसेनेचाच राहील. आता अध्यक्ष महोदयांना सुद्धा याच्यामध्ये वेळ न काढता लवकरात लवकर निर्णय घ्यावा याच्यासाठी आम्ही आता मागणी तर करूच. हा एक भाग झाला. लेकिन आज नीतीश जी और तेजस्वी जी आए हैं, मैं आपका स्वागत कर ही रहा हूँ और लड़ाई तो आज शुरुआत हो गई है. मैंने जैसे अभी अभी आपको कहा जब हम अंदर बात कर रहे थे तो एक ज्याला शुभ शकुन असं म्हणतो कि इतने दिनों से हमारी लड़ाई चल रही थी सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में, आज आप भी आ गए और वो निर्णय भी आ गया. इस देश में अब प्रजातंत्र उसकी रक्षा करना हमारा काम है. जैसे सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने कहा कि अगर मैं रिजाइन नहीं करता, मैं इस्तीफा नहीं देता तो शायद वो मैं वापस मुख्यमंत्री बन जाता. मैं मेरे लिए नहीं लड़ रहा हूँ, मेरी लड़ाई जनता के लिए है, मेरे देश के लिए, मेरे राज्य के लिए है. और भले हम इसके पहले राजनीति में विवाद तो होते रहते हैं, लेकिन एक मत तो हमारा हो गया है कि इस देश को हमें बचाना है, संविधान को बचाया है. और इसलिए आप यहाँ आए हैं, हम मिलकर पूरे आप तो पूरे देश में घूम रहे हैं, सबके घर जा रहे हैं, हम सब मिलकर ये जो अपने देश को फिर से एक बार गुलाम बनाना चाहते हैं उनको घर भेजेंगे. और मुझे पक्का भरोसा है पूरी जनता हमारा इंतजार कर रही है.
राजीनामा देण्याची चूक झाली असं वाटतं का?
जी बोलेंगे.
तो आपने तो बात बता ही दिया है. सब लोग तो आए ही हुए हैं इनसे मिलने के लिए. बातचीत तो होती रहती थी, लेकिन ये तय था कि एक दिन लोग आएंगे. इन्होंने आज ही का समय दिया और आज जो इनका मामला था जिसके बारे में जानते ही हैं, इनके साथ जो अन्याय हुआ था, अब जिस तरह से जो फैसला आज आ गया तो बहुत अच्छा हुआ है. तो इन्होंने खुद ही बता ही दिया है. और किसी भी प्रकार से एक तो आश्चर्य की बात है कि पार्टी के नाम को कैसे कोई बदल सकता है. तो इन सब चीज़ों को लेकर के तो हम लोग सब दिन तो अपनी बात अपना इनके साथ हम लोग रही हैं, लेकिन अभी जो हम लोग आए हुए हैं उसका मकसद इन्होंने बता दिया. हम लोग चाहते हैं कि पूरे देश में अधिक से अधिक पार्टियां एकजुट हों और मिल करके हम लोग लड़ेंगे. तो आज जो केंद्र में हैं वो पूरे देश के लिए कोई काम नहीं कर रहे हैं और समझ लीजिए इतिहास बदल रहा है. इसलिए इन सब चीज़ों को देखते हुए अपने देश के हित में और आज़ादी की लड़ाई हुई और किस तरह से देश आज़ाद हुआ है और कितना ज़्यादा काम होता रहा है पहले से. काम तो करते नहीं. अब आप सब लोग मीडिया के साथ ही हम आपका नमन करते हैं. आपके हम खिलाफ नहीं कुछ बोल सकते, लेकिन हम जानते हैं ना कि आप लोगों के ऊपर भी किस तरह से किया है कब्जा. कि कोई बात तो थोड़ा बहुत आप कह दीजिएगा, लेकिन ज्यादातर वो लोग अपनी तरफ से प्रचार करवा रहे हैं. काम क्या कर रहे हैं देश में बताइए? कहीं कोई काम हो रहा? और अलग अलग राज्यों में दूसरे पार्टी के लोगों ने जो काम किया है उसके बारे में तो उतना चर्चा भी नहीं होता. तो इसीलिए देश के हित में जरूरी है कि भाई देश आगे बढ़े और आपस में किसी तरह का विवाद नहीं होना चाहिए. कोशिश क्या हो रही है? समाज में एक तरह का विवाद पैदा हो और ये नहीं होना चाहिए. सब में एकता, हिंदू मुस्लिम कोई भी जाति के हों, सब में कोई विवाद नहीं होना चाहिए, एकता रहनी चाहिए. तो हम लोग तो यही चाहते हैं कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पार्टियां एक साथ मिल करके काम करेंगी. और इस बीच में बहुत लोगों से बातचीत हो गई है. आज तो इनसे ऐसे हमारी बात हम लोगों की होती रहती है, आई ही है, आज भी बात करेंगे. अब इसके बाद ये तय होगा कि कब मीटिंग सब लोगों की होनी. तो अभी तो एक राउंड आप जानते ही हैं, पिछले महीने भी हम लोगों ने बातचीत किया और जिस तरह से बातचीत हुई है अनेक पार्टियों से, बहुत लोगों से बहुत अच्छी बातचीत हो गई है. अब उसके बाद आगे जो करना होगा वो हम लोग करेंगे। लेकिन अभी तो आए हैं, बस यही मकसद है इनका और हम लोगों का विचार तो एक ही है ना, भाई देश के हित में काम करेंगे, कोई तरह से जो हमारा पुराना इतिहास है देश का उसको बिल्कुल कायम रखेंगे। तो ये सब चीजों के लिए करेंगे। इन लोग को अपना कर रहे हैं ना, इन लोग आजादी की लड़ाई से क्या मतलब था, इनको कोई मतलब नहीं। अब वो सोच लीजिए कितना कोई काम हो रहा है, अपने अपने ढंग से नई नई चीजों का नामकरण कुछ भी होते रहता है, तो विचित्र बात है। तो इसीलिए जरूरत इस बात की है कि एकदम पूरे देश को एकजुट करना है और आगे बढ़ाना है। तो अगर सभी लोग एकजुट होकर के करेंगे और उनका जब मुकाबला होगा अगले साल के चुनाव में, लोकसभा के चुनाव में, तो खूब अच्छी तरह से सफलता इधर मिलेगी और फिर देश सही दिशा में आगे बढ़ जाएगा।
सवाल इसके दो पक्ष हैं। पहला पक्ष यह है, आपने कहा लड़ाई में अपने लिए नहीं लड़ रहा हूँ, मैं जनता के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ। मेरा सवाल यहाँ से इसके दो पक्ष ये है कि पहला तो ये कि क्या अगर आप उस वक्त इस्तीफा नहीं देते तो आज आपकी लड़ाई और ज्यादा मजबूत होकर उभर के सामने आती। पहला
मैं मानता हूँ, देखो इसके जिस नजरिया से आप देखते हो, ठीक है, कानूनी तौर पर मैंने इस्तीफा दिया शायद गलत हो सकता है, लेकिन नैतिकता अगर देखे तो जिन लोगों को मेरे पिताजी ने, मेरे पार्टी ने सब कुछ दिया, वो लोग उठकर मेरे ऊपर उंगलियां उठाए तो उनके लिए मैं मेरा विश्वास या अविश्वास क्यों जताने की कोशिश करूं। तो ऐसे लोगों को अधिकार ही नहीं है मुझे सवाल पूछने का। जिन लोगों ने मेरे पार्टी से सब कुछ लिया और गद्दारी की, तो गद्दार लोग मेरे ऊपर अविश्वास लाए और उसका मैं सामना करूं, कैसे हो सकता है? ये तो गद्दार लोग हैं। आज तो कोर्ट ने कहा, और मतलब कोर्ट ने गद्दार नहीं किया, लेकिन ये सारी बातें हैं। आज तो मतलब महाराष्ट्र में आप सरकार ही नहीं है। नैतिकता तो अभी जैसे मैंने नैतिकता का पालन किया, तो अगर इस मुख्यमंत्री में जरा भी कोई नैतिकता होगी तो मुख्यमंत्री और उप मुख्यमंत्री ने इस्तीफा देना चाहिए, जैसे मैंने दिया।
महाविकास आघाडीमध्ये सुद्धा जे सर्व प्रमुख नेते होते त्यांनी तुम्हाला म्हटलं होतं की राजीनामा देऊ नका, आपण फ्लोअर टेस्टला सामोरे जाऊ। तुम्ही भावनिक राजकारणाला महत्व दिलं
नाही, मी असेल तो कदाचित आमच्या घराण्याचा गुण किंवा दोष असेल, पण मी जे आता म्हटलं की ज्या घराणी, ज्या पक्षांनी ज्यांना सगळं काही दिलं, सगळं काही घेऊन सुद्धा जे माझ्या पाठीत वार करायला निघाले, त्यांनी माझ्यावरती अविश्वास आणावा हे मला काही पटलेलं नाही। म्हणजे एक तर स्वतः गद्दार, त्यांनी विश्वासघात त्यांनी केला। विश्वासघात करणाऱ्यांकडून मला जर विश्वासदर्शक ठराव, अविश्वासदर्शक ठरावाबद्दल विचारलं जात असेल तर ते अयोग्य आहे।
सर, मला दो युवा यहाँ पर हैं, आदित्य हैं और तेजस्वी हैं। जिस लड़ाई की आप बात कर रहे हैं, जो मिलकर सामने आए हैं, इनमें इन दोनों का कितना अहम रोल और किस तरह से देखेंगे आप?
अभी क्या रोल, अभी क्या वो सिनेमा या नाटक थोड़ी है कि रोल कैसे रहेगा। ये देखो ऐसा रोल रहेगा, ये रोल तो
जब ये हम लोग ऑपोजिशन यूनिटी की बात करते हैं, इकट्ठा आ रहे हैं, विपक्ष का चेहरा कौन बनेगा? आपकी कुछ कोशिश?
ठीक है, चलो अभी तो हम इकट्ठा आ रहे हैं।
सबको एकजुट करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन अपना कुछ नहीं करना चाहते हैं, ये जान लीजिए। हम तो सिर्फ चाहते हैं कि सब एकजुट हो, मिल करके सब लोग लड़ें और हम लोग मिल करके पूरा का पूरा सिद्धांत बना के चलें और देश को आगे बढ़ाएं। हमको नहीं बनना है, और जो भी बनेंगे वो सब मिलके सबको आगे बढ़ाएंगे।
बिहार में मीटिंग का डेट तय हुआ है, मीटिंग का डेट तय हुआ है बिहार
So there we heard from Uddhav Thackeray, his first reaction after what we heard from the Supreme Court earlier in the day. We also briefly heard from Dinesh Kumar, who in fact had come to meet Uddhav Thackeray, but of course that meeting was on the lines of opposition unity before 2024. But as far as what we've heard from the Supreme Court, this is what Uddhav Thackeray had to say, that the fight will go on. The people of Maharashtra waiting for us to return. He, of course, has said that possibly his decision to step down before a floor test possibly could be right or wrong. But this is a fight for democracy. This is a fight for the party's people. And he's fighting not just for the people, but for state at large. We'll try and establish a connection with our colleagues to try and understand what is going to be the road ahead as far as Uddhav Thackeray is concerned. And going back in time, does he regret stepping down before facing a floor test? Because that's exactly what we've heard from the court today, that if Uddhav Thackeray, in fact, had decided to face that floor test and not resign, then possibly things could have been very, very different today. Vinaya Deshpande continues to be with us. Vinaya, when asked that specific question, why did he take that decision to step down without facing a floor test? Does he regret it? We didn't hear a clear answer because Uddhav Thackeray still sees this as the beginning of another fight for his people and the state.
Well, it's the moral high ground that he has taken, and remember, with the kind of victim card that Uddhav Thackeray has been playing for the last few months, this will only possibly boost his image further, because he has said that in view of such an ignominy, I preferred that, on the ground of morality, I should resign, and that is why I did resign. And now, after such a scathing judgment that the Supreme Court has given, there is no moral ground for this government to survive, and that is why, on the grounds of morality, even this government should resign. This is an interesting pitch that Uddhav Thackeray has made right now while speaking to the media, because remember, this will pave way for the kind of sympathy wave that he has been reaping for the last few months. Remember, after he was after he resigned and the whole government dispensation changed, and the kind of emotional appeal that he has been making thereafter, there has been a massive sympathy wave for Uddhav Thackeray in several parts of Maharashtra, the ramifications of which could have been felt through the several local body elections that were held in the last 1 year or so. And now, with this kind of a scathing judgment that has come, questioning the role of the governor as well as the speaker, and asking how those decisions were taken by the governor, this is something that Uddhav Thackeray has shown will be used as ammunition against the Eknath Shinde faction. Till now, the only ammunition that was being used was the Gaddar tag. But now, clearly, armed with this judgment, though this is a kind of a heartbreaking judgment for Uddhav Thackeray and the entire Mahavikas Aghadi, the pitch that Uddhav Thackeray seems to be setting right now for himself, for the party and for Mahavikas Aghadi is taking a moral high ground, is showing that it was on the basis of this moral high ground he gave away power, something that could have been reinstated by the court had he not resigned, and now he expects the same morality from Eknath Shinde faction. So this, in some sense, is Uddhav Thackeray's effort at sullying the image of Eknath Shinde, showing him in a poor light, showing how these 40 MLAs have gone only in the lust of power, and that they have no morality left after such a scathing judgment. So through this press conference that Uddhav Thackeray has held, he has pretty much set the narrative for the coming few months that will be taken up at least by his party.
It's interesting, Vinaya, that he's seeing this as a moral victory, and he's also justifying his decision of stepping down as the chief minister without facing the floor test, saying because that was the right thing to do. And today he expects the Shinde camp and his deputy to do exactly that. But what I was asking you a short while ago, before we had to cut to those visuals coming in, was going back to that time. What was the advice that was given to Uddhav Thackeray? As I was asking you earlier as well, even Sharad Pawar and the likes had said, we had no idea that Uddhav Thackeray would resign and not decide to face the floor test. Do you have details of who were the people who were advising Uddhav Thackeray at that time that this is the right step?
Well, it's in fact quite unfortunate and quite ironic that such a huge decision that Uddhav Thackeray took was in fact a unilateral decision. Several party workers, several leaders from within the Mahavikas Aghadi have time and again confided that he did not consult anybody at all, and that the only reason he said while he was discussing with several of his colleagues and party leaders was that he felt this was an extremely insulting thing to do, to face this kind of a floor test when he did not have the numbers and he did not have the heart to face this insult. Now, somebody who's a kind of a veteran political player, somebody like Sharad Pawar, who has seen the making and breaking of several governments and has seen how, even the smallest of steps that are taken at such crucial junctures prove to be crucial for either saving the government or for the downfall of that government. Now, it is exactly that very thing that has been playing out. A novice with respect to legislative politics, Uddhav Thackeray, it is the first term or as a legislator clearly showed that that kind of ignominy was something that was difficult for him to take. And unlike any other politically seasoned players, may it be Congress, may it be NCP, there was no dearth of seasoned political players who would have acted as not just as allies but also as good sounding boards. He did not take their advice at such a crucial juncture. He just said that it was something that he would not have liked, facing that insult on the floor of the House, and he did not find it right to go to the assembly to face the floor test. Now, such a small thing and something that has haunted the MVA has proven to be the death knell for the party finally.
Oh, absolutely. Vinay, we'll just request you to stay on with us. So politically speaking, a sad day as far as the Uddhav camp is concerned, because the status quo cannot be reinstated because of the call that he took, deciding to resign before facing the floor test. Legally speaking, let's bring in our legal correspondent, Ananya Bhatnagar as well. Ananya, we were speaking earlier as far as the questions that have been raised by the top court on the role of the governor as well as the speaker. But as far as the disqualification is concerned, what happens as far as the disqualification is concerned? Speaker, of course, will take a call as far as the disqualification is concerned. What's next as far as the Shinde faction is concerned?
All right, joining us now is the School Education Minister of Maharashtra, Cabinet Minister Deepak Kesarkar. Thank you very much, Mr. Kesarkar, for speaking with us. The Supreme Court today saying that the status quo ante, that is the Uddhav Thackeray government, cannot be restored because Mr. Thackeray resigned, did not face the floor test. So for now, your government is safe. The bjp-Shinde faction government is safe for now. Yes. But do you believe that the court, what it said about the role of the governor and the role of the speaker, basically saying that it was illegal, what they did?
You'll have to understand one thing, that the written judgment has not yet received by us. At the same time, there are no particular guidelines how the governor should act in such cases. This is a good thing that now there are written guidelines when situation like that arises, what decision the governor has to take. Those guidelines are there, which will be very useful in future.
But the court has said that A, the decision of the speaker to appoint Mr. Gongawale as the chief whip was erroneous, it was illegal, and that there was no material evidence to show that these MLAs, 34 or 35 MLAs, were actually going to withdraw support to the Uddhav Thackeray government.
These things are not relevant now because Uddhav Thackeray has resigned and he has not faced the floor test. That is very important. And that's why here once you are resigning and the other side you are asking to be restored, that is being refused by the court, which is a very good decision and we welcome this decision. And you must have observed that Uddhav Thackeray had never listened to Sharad Pawar. Sharad Pawar ji has advised him not to resign. At the same time, in his own autobiography, he has clearly mentioned that Uddhav Thackeray was not meeting anybody, he was not meeting the people, he was not meeting the MLAs, not meeting the MPs, and that was the reason for the revolt that happened in Shiv Sena. That his autobiography remarks were also very rudely replied by Samna and Uddhav Thackeray fraction, and I think a senior leader like him should not have been treated like this by them.
So you must have heard Mr. Thackeray just had a press conference along with the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, where he said that the Shinde government now has no moral authority or constitutional authority to continue in office because the Supreme Court has declared both the governor's action and the speaker's action as bona fide erroneous in law.
What moral he had to become the CM of Maharashtra with the support of Congress and NCP, who were rejected by the people of Maharashtra. The mandate of the people of Maharashtra is more important than anything else, and since he has resigned, the question of governor's decision does not arise at all. And as a whip, his whip, who is Mr. Prabhu, can always put before his part of the incidents before the Honorable Speaker, because they are claiming that attending a meeting not on the floor of the House. It is just not attending the meeting called by him. Calls for disqualification. It is never written neither in the Act nor the rules framed under this Act.
Okay.
That's why I feel that these are all academic questions now. So far the moralist question, what he has written about Nitish ji, you will have to go through it and then you will have to realize that a towering personality who is leading India, every Indian is proud of him, and these people are coming together just to defeat one person who is making proud to our country. And all Indians will take note of this and give them a proper reply when the parliament elections come.
Now that this legal hurdle has been crossed, do you believe it's time for the BJP and Mr. Shinde to call for the BMC election? And also, can you assure that in 2024, both parliamentary and Vidhan Sabha elections, it will be the BJP and Shinde faction that will go in united as an alliance?
We are not Shinde fraction, we are Shiv Sena, and we have that symbol also, and that is not challenged and not accepted by the Supreme Court also. We can function separately. That is what the Supreme Court has said. So we'll act separately. We are in alliance with BJP, and this is called Yuti government in Maharashtra, which will work for Maharashtra, people of Maharashtra, and will restore the back glory of Maharashtra.
No, so will you call for the BMC elections and will you fight both parliamentary and Vidhan Sabha in alliance?
All elections together.
All
and
elections
we'll win
together.
it, and we'll work for the Maharashtra. Yes, yes, certainly.
Okay.
And that too, Fadnavis Sahib has clearly mentioned that under the leadership of Mr. Shinde, the election would be fought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak Kesarkar, for joining us. That is the cabinet minister in the Maharashtra government in charge of school education, speaking for the Shinde faction, of course, welcoming this decision by the Supreme Court.
Well, that was the first reaction that was coming in from the Shinde faction, saying that we welcome the decision that has come in from the top court. He's also gone on to say that people of Maharashtra have rejected Uddhav Thackeray. On us, as far as the questions that were raised on the role of the speaker and the governor, he said that everything was done by the book. All protocols, in fact, were followed. Let's also now continue the conversation with our colleagues. Vinaya as well as Ananya continue to be with us. Ananya, coming to you first, what I was essentially asking you earlier. As far as the questions that have been raised, as far as actions, I apologize for interrupting Ananya. Another press conference now coming in. Let's listen in.
सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाचा जो निकाल आला आहे त्या निकालामुळे आम्ही पूर्ण समाधानी आहोत. या संदर्भात 2 वाजता माननीय मुख्यमंत्र्यांसमवेत प्रेस कॉन्फरन्सला मी उपस्थित राहणार आहे. माननीय मुख्यमंत्र्यांची प्रेस कॉन्फरन्स आहे, त्यामुळे निकालावर अधिक विश्लेषण हे प्रेस कॉन्फरन्समध्ये आम्ही करू. फक्त एवढं सांगतो की जे लोक कालपर्यंत उड्या मारत होते की आज सरकार जाणार, त्यांच्या सगळ्या मनसुब्यांवर पाणी फेरलं गेलेलं आहे. ज्यांनी वेगवेगळ्या चर्चा केल्या त्या चर्चाही किती थोतांड होत्या हेही यातनं पूर्णपणे समोर आलेलं आहे. आता याचं पुढचं सगळं विश्लेषण हे निश्चितपणे 2 वाजताच्या पत्रकार परिषदेमध्ये आम्ही करू. तोपर्यंत आपण मला असं वाटतं वाट पाहू. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जो निर्णय दिया है उस पर हम समाधान व्यक्त करते हैं. 2 बजे माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी और मैं इस विषय पर प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करेंगे. उस समय इसका पूरा विश्लेषण करेंगे. किंतु जो लोग सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय पर स्पेक्युलेशन करते हुए हमारी सरकार जाएगी ऐसा कहते थे, आज उनको उसका जवाब मिल गया है. हम लोग इसके ऊपर विस्तार के साथ 2 बजे बोलेंगे. आज नवी मुंबई आयुक्तालयाच्या अंतर्गत अतिशय चांगला कार्यक्रम झाला. महिलांकरता सावली अशा प्रकारचं एक इमारत जी निर्माण झाली आहे याच्यामध्ये सायबर क्राईमच्या संदर्भातली सायबर लॅब, महिलांकरता समुपदेशन केंद्र, महिलांना डिस्ट्रेसमध्ये असल्यानंतर राहण्याची व्यवस्था, अशा सगळ्या व्यवस्था करण्यात आल्या. त्यासोबत एक निर्भया पथक देखील या ठिकाणी तयार केलेलं आहे. एर्टिगा गाड्या आणि 2 व्हीलर ज्यातनं महिलांनी कॉल दिल्यानंतर
Ertiga car as well as two-wheelers have been formed.
मदत केली पाहिजे अशा प्रकारचे सेंटर देखील सुरू झालं आहे.
Devendra Fadnavis's first reaction also coming in post the verdict that came from the Supreme Court, saying we are satisfied as far as the verdict is concerned, and they will give a detailed reply at around 2 o'clock, which is less than 10 minutes from now. Yesha Kotak also now joining us. Yesha, first help us understand, translate what we heard from Devendra Fadnavis.
What in fact we got to know is that Devendra Fadnavis has said that they're satisfied with the decision of the Supreme Court. The fact that those people who were saying that the government would be dismissed have gotten an answer from the Supreme Court. This has been a unanimous reaction that we've seen coming in Devendra Fadnavis as well as the Shinde faction, wherein they've said that there are people who are questioning the stability of the Eknath Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis government. But now, clearly, Supreme Court has in fact given them an answer. Now, this is what we've heard Devendra Fadnavis, Deputy CM, speaking about it. We'll see that in a while from now, we have Chief Minister Eknath Shinde also would be addressing the press conference very soon and giving his reaction. But however, just before Devendra Fadnavis could speak, we saw that Deepak Kesarkar, who's been the spokesperson for Shinde faction, also expressed a similar kind of a reaction, wherein he said that the Supreme Court has ensured that that a stable government be maintained in Maharashtra. In fact, while we see that there has been certain moral grounds on which the Supreme Court had supported Uddhav Thackeray, but on the other hand, the stance clearly when it comes to the government lies with the Shinde faction, Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis faction. Yes.
Yeah, so we're still awaiting that detailed press conference that will come in at about 2 o'clock is what we're understanding. But Yesha, because you got the first reaction from the Shinde faction a short while ago, are they responding to the criticism that's coming in as far as decisions that were taken by the governor, specifically when the Supreme Court said that the governor erred in the judgment that the Maha Vikas Aghadi in fact had no majority? Are they responding to that criticism?
Yes, very much. We've seen that the Shinde faction, considering we question them particularly on the fact that governor erred. Apart from that, we also question them on the bit that the whip which was in fact assigned earlier by Shiv Sena, who was in fact which was in fact replaced as Bharat Gogawde, that was also questioned by the Supreme Court when these questions were asked to the Shinde faction. The response was that in fact now when the speaker would look after this case, all these questions that have been raised by Supreme Court would in fact be looked at, and they very much believe that they are Shiv Sena, and it is not that they've gotten out of Shiv Sena. They believe that considering these people who got out of the faction are actual Shiv Sena is the reaction that is coming now, and that's been their stance from day one.
Yeah, Yesha, I want to ask you another aspect. We just heard that press conference that came from Uddhav Thackeray a short while ago, and he's one defending his decision of resigning, saying because it was the right thing to do, that was the right moral decision to take. Today, he's also saying that if people today have any morality, hitting out at the Shinde faction, saying they should also step down. Is the Shinde faction reacting to what Uddhav Thackeray said?
Yes, in fact, what Uddhav Thackeray is saying is something that the Supreme Court had also questioned, that if he had not resigned, the status quo would have been maintained. But when it comes to the Shinde faction, when you speak to them about this stance of Supreme Court as well as that of Uddhav Thackeray, they're saying that Uddhav Thackeray stepped down because he wanted to gain sympathy of people. There was no stance that Uddhav Thackeray had. That's what the Shinde faction is saying, that there was no stance that Uddhav Thackeray had. He did not have the support of these people. 40 of his MLAs had already gone in with Eknath Shinde, which is where he resigned because he was sure that he would not get that kind of a support on the floor of the House. And that's something that even Uddhav Thackeray has said, that he stepped down because he wanted to defend democracy, and democracy was being murdered. Now, what we've seen is that Uddhav Thackeray has said that governor acted illegally. Now, this is the kind of reaction that is coming in from him post the Supreme Court order as well. And similarly, Supreme Court was also critical of the governor's stance.
Yeah, Yesha, unfortunately, we'll have to leave that conversation there, but this is the big political story that we'll continue to track here on CNN News 18. For now, it's a wrap from my side. Slipping into a very short break. We're coming back with lots more.
Police sources on the ground said that this does not seem like a terror attack and this seems like a case of property dispute. But now, since the person has been taken into custody, it has now very clearly been revealed about the nitty-gritties of this entire operation that was carried out by these two individuals. Basically, they wanted to give a message of atrocities against Sikhs, and hence these low-intensity blasts were carried out. Now, these bombs that were used, these were crude bombs, and these were not ID or any other sort of sophisticated bombs, but these were crude bombs that were used, and hence it was of very, very low intensity. Now, remember the blast that happened on Saturday, at least 6 people got injured, whereas the blast that happened on Monday, another person got injured. He had a few splinters on his legs. Now, this entire investigation is now being carried out.
A development coming out of Amritsar, where early this morning the area around the Golden Temple saw the 3rd blast it's seen since just Saturday. Now, in the blast that took place this morning, 5 people have already been arrested. Now, the blast itself took place in the early hours of the morning. And as we just told you, this is the 3rd blast the area has seen in just the last 7 days. Now, according to central agency sources, a kind of potassium chlorate was actually possibly used in the making of the explosion itself. Sources have further said that the blast seems to be more to provoke than to harm, with the timing of the last 2 blasts coinciding with the fact that there were lesser people in the area because it took place early in the morning. Now, the Punjab Police DGP is expected to brief the media over all of these attacks. Let's take a look. This is a walkthrough, a ground report that my colleague Rajiv Sharma brought us from the ground. Take a look.
मंदिर साहिब के बिल्कुल पास श्री गुरु रामदास सराय में एक धमाका होता है। 12:10 पर इसकी सूचना पुलिस को मिलती है और पुलिस कमिश्नर खुद मौके पर पहुंचते हैं। तो इस समय हम उसी जगह पर मौजूद हैं। आप देख सकते हैं कि श्री गुरु रामदास जो सराय है उसका बिल्कुल ये पिछला हिस्सा है और आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर गलियारा जो बना हुआ है जहाँ पर जो लोग हैं वो सैर करते हैं। तो इसी इलाके में कहा जा रहा है कि रात को तीसरा जो ब्लास्ट है वो हुआ था। जैसे पुलिस को जानकारी मिली तो पुलिस कमिश्नर नौनिहाल सिंह खुद यहाँ पर पहुंचे। उसके बाद जांच जो है वो शुरू की गई।
हमारे को रात को 12 बजे के आसपास, 12:15 के आसपास यहाँ पे इंटीमेशन आई थी कि यहाँ पे एक लाउड साउंड हैज़ बीन हर्ड। इट इज़ सस्पेक्टेड दैट देयर इज़ अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि एक एक्सप्लोजन और हुआ है, बट बिकॉज अभी अंधेरा है और ये इस बिल्डिंग के पीछे हुआ है, वहाँ पे अभी तक एक कंफर्म नहीं हो पाया है कि वेदर इट इज़ अ ब्लास्ट और कोई और इंसिडेंट है। आर FSL टीम इज़ ऑन द स्पॉट, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं एंड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स, एज पार्ट जो हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, हम सस्पेक्ट्स को राउंड अप कर रहे हैं लोगों।
Good afternoon, hello and welcome. You're watching CNN News 18. I'm Anusha Soni. Our top focus this hour. Well, it's been a day of big judgments from the Supreme Court. These are Constitution bench judgments which have wide implications on the political scenario of this country. Let's talk about the one that has impacted the politics of Maharashtra. The Supreme Court pronounced the verdict on a batch of cross petitions filed by Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray faction. The 5-judge Constitution bench headed by Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, said that it cannot order the restoration of Uddhav Thackeray government. The reason? He resigned himself, and that broke the chain of causation and stopped the Supreme Court from giving a status quo ante, something that Uddhav Thackeray had demanded from the Supreme Court of India. The bench also added that the Speaker was wrong in appointing the whip of the Eknath Shinde faction, and this is a matter which is best left to a political party. The court further said that the exercise of discretion by the governor was not in accordance with the constitution, and the governor erred in making the judgment that MVA had no majority, the Mahavikas Aghadi. The court order has come and now this is clearly something which has evoked reaction from across different political spectrums. We have had the faction of Eknath Shinde speaking. We've also had reaction coming in from Uddhav Thackeray and his team. Let's also get you the details. The detailed judgment copy is out. We get you the details of that crucial order, 141-page judgment from the Supreme Court of India that enumerates the reasoning. Now, here is how this judgment goes on. First, it talks about the role of the Speaker, how various events unfolded in Maharashtra politics that prompted the decision of the governor. The two key constitutional authorities which are critical here in a political stalemate of this nature, pertaining to the governor, pertaining to the speaker, these two offices, their role in a sense has been criticized. The Supreme Court goes on to say that the speaker ought not have decided as to who the whip of the party is. Whip is decided by a political party. Frowning upon the role of the governor, he also said that when the governor had called in for a session, at that point there was no objective evidence before the governor to call in for a session. Now, let's also break down the details. My colleague Ananya is joining us on the broadcast, getting us more details on that story. Ananya, I believe in the last few paragraphs, in the last few pages of this judgment, the Supreme Court enumerates certain points. Could you take us through them?
Well, definitely the judgment enumerates on a very, very important aspect. Number one, the conclusion is that the Namam Rebia judgment has been referred to a 7-judges bench. Second is with regards to the whip. That was a very controversial opinion that was also being talked about by the lawyers and the politicians after this judgment came in. But the Supreme Court is very clear in its direction, and it has asked the speaker to actually go into the party constitution, inquire, and to see as to who is the whip of the Shiv Sena party at this point of time. It is by the political party that it would be decided, and by going into the party constitution, and that is the clear direction of the Supreme Court. With regards to the reinstating of Uddhav Thackeray, the Supreme Court is clear that since you've resigned on your own will and did not face a floor test, he cannot be reinstated as the Chief Minister of the state of Maharashtra. But I'll take you through some of the key portions of this particular judgment, wherein the Supreme Court has also justified as to how, in fact, the inviting of Mr. Eknath Shinde and Mr. Devendra Fadnavis to form a government in Maharashtra was very clear. There are two reasons that the Supreme Court has actually given, and I'll read that particular portion for our viewers itself. The president of the Shiv Sena, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, was not in favor of a government formed in the coalition with the BJP. However, the Shinde was in favor of such an alliance. By inviting Mr. Shinde to form a government, the governor has de facto recognized the group led by him as the real Shiv Sena, and the governor is not empowered to recognize the legitimacy of one of the faction over another.
Before I go to Ridhima and talk more about this judgment, there's one particular factor that I want to discuss with you. And let's come to page number 140, para G. And here, the court goes on to say that the effect of deletion of para 3 in the 10th schedule is that the defense of split is no longer available to members facing disqualification proceedings. The speaker would prima facie determine who the political party is for the purpose of adjudicating. This directly means that when the disqualification petitions are decided, split, or the fact that they are more than 2/3, is not a defense that at least those 16 MLAs can raise.
Well, definitely you're absolutely correct in saying so. And when the speaker would be going into, in fact, the political party, he will have to see as to what the party constitution say, who are the people that are recognized by the party constitution, and then he has to decide as to who is the real whip of the Shiv Sena. He has been asked to conduct an inquiry into the same. But since now the Eknath Shinde camp has been recognized by, in fact, the Election Commission of India as well. So what would be the impact of that? What would be the decision of the speaker? It is something that is a matter of time, and we'll get to know in when the speaker
Ananya, stay with us on the broadcast. So these 2 points that I discussed with Ananya, Ridhima is also with us on the show, and she's going to show us, broadly that those pages of the judgment. Ridhima, I believe you have specific portions of the judgment that talk about the role of the governor. And if you can also specifically refer to this point which has been made about the 10th schedule on page number 140. These are two very important aspects of this judgment that has come out. Ridhima.
Oh, absolutely. Anusha and Ananya, as you both rightly pointed out, it's over 140 pages, and this is the order copy which we've accessed exclusively here on CNN News 18. The two big questions that have been raised by the Supreme Court, one, of course, is why did Uddhav Thackeray decide to resign and not face a floor test? And that is why clock cannot be turned back in time. And the other is, as Anusha and Ananya have been reporting since morning, are the role of the governor and the speaker that has been questioned. Now, why is this important? Let's go to page 128, where the order copy says, and I'm reading out from that, the governor had no objective material on the basis of which he could doubt the confidence of the incumbent government. The resolution on which the governor relied did not contain any indication that the MLAs wished to exit from the Maha Vikas Aghadi government. This is crucial. The communication expressing discontent on the part of some MLAs is not sufficient for the governor to call for a floor test. It further says, and I'm just going to move this up, the governor ought to apply apply his mind to the communication or any other material before him to assess whether the government seemed to have lost the confidence of the House. We use the term opinion to mean satisfaction based on objective criteria as to whether he possessed relevant material and not to mean the subjective satisfaction as far as the governor is concerned. So was there an error in assuming that the MVA had lost the majority and support as far as the MLAs is concerned? That's what it says as part of the governor is concerned.
As part of the governor is concerned, I'm going to talk a bit more about the effect this order has on the pending disqualification proceedings and how this really moves forward. The court was very clear of the view that they cannot decide on the disqualification. It is a matter which is best left to the constitutional authority, the speaker. Ananya, let's talk about 2 points which I believe, other than the theoretical quote-unquote or the philosophical or morality aspect of it, become important. One is the appointment of whip and the manner it was done. It is being said in the judgment without mincing any words that the whip of the party was what was appointed by Uddhav Thackeray. That's the stated legal position. But there is no direction per se to reinstate that whip. The second point is, and I believe that's of constitutional importance for other political parties or other scenarios that may emerge in the future, that suppose there's a political party, 60 out of 40 people break out and say, look, we are the real political party, not you. Well, that does not prevent you from saving yourself from the disqualification proceedings. I believe that's a huge and a very important part that the Supreme Court has clarified, that the protection under the 10th schedule, the 2/3, if you are a 2/3 and you go and merge with another political party, that only applies if you merge with other political party. You do not become the soul of the parent political party that you really come from. You cannot defy the party's constitution or the party structure. Ananya.
Well, definitely, Anusha, this is a landmark judgment not only for the state of Maharashtra but for the country all across, and it would be a very, very precedent judgment when it comes to similar disputes arising in the future as well. But what is very, very clear is that if at all a group of MLAs defect, and even if they want to hijack basically a party, if I say in simple terms, that would not be possible from now on, because the split cannot be used as a tool for, you know, taking over a party and being a majority into that party. You cannot take over that party. Another important aspect that the Supreme Court judgment highlights herein is that, you know, the effect of the 10th schedule and in fact, the deletion of the para 3 won't be a defense that would be available for any of the leaders to actually, you know, avoid the disqualification proceedings in this particular case or in the future as well. This would be a very, very landmark judgment, because defection is something that we've seen happen very, very easily when there is a lower number, when there are coalition governments, when the people are not happy with their own political party. But at the same point of time, this judgment would restrict a lot of wrongdoings that would have happened in the past or would have happened in the case of Maharashtra as well. Though there have been questions raised on, in fact, the incumbent governor, on, in fact, the speakers taking decision. But at the same point of time, the final conclusion for the state of Maharashtra at least remains that the Eknath Shinde government sustains. But the speaker will be deciding as to who the whip of that particular political party would be. And he will have to go into the constitution, conduct an inquiry on the same. And this would also, you know, set the terms straight for an assembly itself, because in the near future, whenever such kind of a dispute arises and the whips are to be changed, this judgment would act as a precedent, and people cannot actually go on and play with the 10th schedule. Because if you remember, when this hearing was going on, the Maharashtra governor had very, very clearly, through Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, had said that the 10th schedule cannot be used as a weapon to stifle, you know, dissent in the party. But the Supreme Court has observed
let's also talk about the
said,
fact that dissent within the political parties and the way it is handled. Suppose there's a rebellion within the Congress party, BJP, or like it happened in Shiv Sena. Is it really open for these factions to go before the governor, to go before the speaker, or determine it on the floor of the House? Chief Justice of India, while reading the judgment, very clearly said that intra-party disputes cannot be decided/adjudicated on the floor of the House, and this is a matter which is best left to the party constitution and the party functionaries. Ananya.
Well, definitely, and I read out that particular excerpt from the judgment where, in fact, you know, in fact, the Chief Justice of India, which he read, The political imbroglio in Maharashtra arose as a result of party differences between the Shiv Sena. However, the floor test cannot be used as a medium to resolve internal party disputes or intra-party disputes. Dissent and disagreement within a political party must be resolved in accordance with the remedies prescribed under the party constitution or through any other methods that party chooses to opt for. So basically going on to say that, you know, floor test is not a medium that you can use if you have a dissent with your own political party. You have to go for the party constitution, you have to talk with the party itself, or you have to take some other kind of remedy. But floor test is no remedy even if you are in a humongous majority amongst that particular political
party. The governor had no
judgment is actually
the governor had no objective evidence before him when he called for the assembly session. That's clearly something that was highlighted by the Supreme Court. Well, on your screen right now, that's Mr. Eknath Shinde. Those are the live visuals coming in. He's likely to make a press statement very, very soon. All that has happened in Supreme Court, it is true that the status quo ante has not been restored. But yes, from the constitutional point of view, from a political morality point of view, the Supreme Court has said that the process that was followed by the Speaker, by the Governor, the entire proceedings on the floor of the House, up to the point till Mr. Uddhav Thackeray resigned, were illegal. Let's try and listen in.
ठरवलेल्या सरकारच्या पत्रकार परिषदेमध्ये मी आपल्या सर्वांचं स्वागत करतो. सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने महाराष्ट्राच्या संदर्भात आज जो निकाल दिलेला आहे, या निकालाबद्दल आम्ही पूर्ण समाधान व्यक्त करतो आणि निश्चितपणे गिरीभाऊ या लोकशाहीमध्ये लोकशाहीचा आणि लोकमताचा हा पूर्णपणे विजय झालेला आहे असं या निमित्ताने नमूद करू इच्छितो. हा जो काही निकाल आहे त्यातले 4-5 जे महत्त्वाचे मुद्दे आहेत त्या मुद्द्यांकडे मी
There were 4-5 important aspects that were mentioned here in this decision. I would want to speak about it. Firstly,
सर्वात पहिल्यांदा तर महाविकास आघाडीच्या मनसुब्यावर पूर्णपणे पाणी फिरत सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने स्पष्टपणे सांगितलेलं आहे की स्टेटस को एंटे करता येणार नाही,
the intention of Mahavikas Aghadi
बनवता येणार नाही.
Uddhav Thackeray will never be able to become the chief minister again.
त्यांनी अतिशय स्पष्टपणे हे सांगितलेलं आहे की डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनचे जे पिटिशन्स आहेत या संदर्भातला सगळा अधिकार हा स्पीकरचा आहे.
Decision regarding disqualification will be taken by speaker.
डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनच्या पिटिशनवर सुनावणी घेतील आणि त्यात त्यांनी जे ऑब्झर्वेशन केलं ते अत्यंत महत्त्वाचं आहे. There are no extraordinary circumstances in the instant case that warrant the exercise of jurisdiction by this court to adjudicate disqualification petition. The speaker must decide the disqualification petition. त्यामुळे याच्यामध्ये कुठलाही एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी सिच्युएशन नाही. त्यामुळे सुप्रीम कोर्टाने याच्यामध्ये हस्तक्षेप करण्याला नकार दिला आणि ते स्पीकरचे अधिकार हे स्पीकरलाच दिलेले आहेत. दुसरं, हे सगळं डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटिशन सुरू असताना ज्यांच्या विरुद्ध पिटिशन सुरू आहेत अशा आमदारांचे सगळे अधिकार हे पूर्णपणे त्यांना आहेत असं देखील अतिशय स्पष्टपणे म्हटलेलं आहे. किंवा त्यांना राईट टू पार्टिसिपेट इन हाऊस रिगार्डलेस ऑफ पेंडन्सी ऑफ एनी पिटिशन ऑफ देअर डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन. आणि जी काही हाऊसचे प्रोसिडिंग चालतील वगैरे याचा डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनचा जो काही निकाल आहे त्याच्याशी काही संबंध राहणार नाही असं सांगितलेलं आहे. त्यामुळे ज्यांच्या विरुद्ध डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनची पिटिशन चालू आहे त्यांना सगळे अधिकार आहेत हे स्पष्टपणे या ठिकाणी सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने सांगितलेलं आहे. त्यानंतर एक अजून महत्वाचं ऑब्झर्वेशन आहे की ज्यामध्ये त्यांनी इलेक्शन कमिशनला पूर्णपणे अधिकार आहेत हे स्पष्टपणे सांगितलेलं आहे. आणि रिगार्डलेस ऑफ
they've clearly mentioned
disqualification petition proceedings. इलेक्शन कमिशन स्वतंत्रपणे निर्णय हा या ठिकाणी घेऊ शकतं. त्यामुळे जे इलेक्शन कमिशनच्या निर्णयावर किंवा त्यांनी केलेल्या प्रोसिडिंग्सवर जे प्रश्नचिन्ह निर्माण करण्याचा प्रयत्न उद्धव ठाकरे यांच्या गटाने केला होता तो पूर्णपणे चुकीचा आहे हे आता स्पष्ट झालाय. आणि हे अतिशय स्पष्टपणे त्यांनी असं म्हटलंय की the Speaker and the ECI are empowered to concurrently adjudicate on the petitions before them under 10th schedule and under paragraph 15 of the symbols order respectively. And while adjudicating petitions under paragraph 15 of the symbols order, the ECI may apply a test that is best suited to the facts and circumstances of case before it. म्हणजे सगळे अधिकार हे इलेक्शन कमिशनचे आहेत आणि त्याच्यामध्ये कुठलीही बाधा नाही हेही या ठिकाणी अतिशय स्पष्टपणे सांगितलेलं आहे. त्यानंतर एक अजून महत्त्वाची गोष्ट की याच्यामध्ये फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ 10th शेड्यूल पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कुठली आहे हे डिसाइड करायचे अधिकार देखील स्पीकरला देण्यात आलेले आहेत. याच्यामधला जी पॅराग्राफ जर आपण वाचला स्पीकर वुड प्रायमा फेसी डिटरमाइन who the political party is for the purpose of adjudicating disqualification petitions under paragraph 2(1) of the 10th schedule where 2 or more factions claim to be the political party. त्यामुळे याही बाबतीत अतिशय स्पष्टपणे अधिकार हे स्पीकरला देण्यात आलेले आहेत. आणि सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं द गव्हर्नर वॉज जस्टिफाईड इन इन्व्हायटिंग मिस्टर शिंदे टू फॉर्म द गव्हर्नमेंट असं म्हटल्यामुळे आता हे सरकार पूर्णपणे कायदेशीर आधी कायदेशीरच होतं संवैधानिकच होतं. काही लोकांना शंका होती. मला असं वाटतं की सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने त्यांच्या शंकेचं समाधान केलं असावं. अर्थात ते सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाला मानत असतील तर मी तर मानतो ते मानत असतील तर त्यांच्या शंकेचं निश्चितपणे समाधान झालं असेल. आज उद्धव ठाकरेजी पत्रकार परिषद मी बघितली. बघत नाही पण शेवटचं मला पाहायला मिळालं आणि त्याच्यामुळे ते असं म्हणाले की मी नैतिकतेच्या आधारावर राजीनामा दिला. माझा त्यांना सवाल आहे भारतीय जनता पक्षासोबत निवडून आला काँग्रेस राष्ट्रवादी सोबत गेला तेव्हा ही नैतिकता कुठल्या डब्यामध्ये बंद केली होती याचं पहिलं उत्तर द्या.
I want to question his moral
तेव्हा ही नैतिकता कुठे होती. खरं म्हणजे नैतिकतेचा विषय तुम्ही सांगू नये कारण तुम्ही खुर्ची करता विचार सोडला आणि एकनाथ शिंदेंनी विचारा करता खुर्ची सोडली. ते सत्तेमध्ये होते आणि ते विरोधी पक्षासोबत आमच्यासोबत आले. त्यामुळे नैतिकतेचा बोलण्याची कुठलाही अधिकार नैतिक अधिकार तुम्हाला नाही. तुमच्या लक्षात आलं होतं
You do not even have the numbers, you do not have the support of your MLAs. People have already left you.
त्या भीतीपोटी तुम्ही त्या ठिकाणी राजीनामा दिला. त्यामुळे विनाकारण त्याला नैतिकतेचा मुलामा चढवण्याचा प्रयत्न करू नका.
You resigned
एकनाथ शिंदेंनी राजीनामा देण्याचा प्रश्न उद्भवत नाही कारण आज त्यांच्या नियुक्तीवर
today Eknath Shinde should not resign because the Supreme Court has clearly justified.
फक्त थोडंसं ब्रीफिंग आपल्याला करून देतो. माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आज महाराष्ट्र के मामले में जो डिसीजन दिया है उस पर हम पूर्ण तरीके से संतोष व्यक्त करते हैं और अब किसी को भी ये शंका नहीं होनी चाहिए कि महाराष्ट्र की सरकार पूर्णतः संवैधानिक है, पूर्णतः लीगल है और ये पूरे संवैधानिक ताकत के साथ यहां पर कार्य कर रही है। जो ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आदेश दिए हैं उसमें से चंद मुद्दे ये मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। पहला मुद्दा, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने यह कहा कि स्टेटस को एंटेन नहीं किया जा सकता। उद्धव ठाकरे इन्हें वापस मुख्यमंत्री नहीं बनाया जा सकता, जो उन्होंने मांग की थी उनके पिटीशन में, ये बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से उच्चतम न्यायालय ने कहा है। दूसरा, उच्चतम न्यायालय ने कहा है कि डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशन का फैसला ये स्पीकर करेंगे, ये फैसला सुप्रीम कोर्ट नहीं करेगा। और उस पर बहुत स्पष्टता से सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है, देयर आर नो एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी सर्कमस्टांसेस in the instant case that warrant the exercise of jurisdiction by this court to adjudicate disqualification petition. There are no extraordinary circumstances ऐसा कहा है, the speaker must decide disqualification petition। ये सीधे सीधे स्पीकर को अधिकार दिया गया है। उसके साथ साथ जो विधायक जिनके खिलाफ डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन की पिटीशन दाखिल की गई है, उनके राइट टू पार्टिसिपेट इन द असेंबली या उनके कोई भी संवैधानिक अधिकार या उनका जो अधिकार है एक जनप्रतिनिधि के रूप में, ये सारा का सारा कंटिन्यू होगा। इसमें डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशन से कोई बाधा नहीं आएगी, ऐसा भी बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से इस ऑर्डर में कहा गया है। इसके साथ साथ एक और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण चीज है जो इस ऑर्डर में कही गई है कि इलेक्शन कमीशन का जो अधिकार है, उस अधिकार को बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से कहा गया है कि वो अधिकार डिस्टिंक्ट एंड डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द प्रोसीडिंग्स ऑफ डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन इन फ्रंट ऑफ स्पीकर। इसका मतलब यह है कि स्पीकर के सामने जो भी डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशन के प्रोसीडिंग्स चल रहे हैं, उसका, क्योंकि शिवसेना ने मांग की थी कि चूंकि ये प्रोसीडिंग चल रहे हैं तो आप इलेक्शन कमीशन को रोकिए और उनको निर्णय मत लेने दीजिए, लेकिन आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने स्पष्ट कर दिया कि इलेक्शन कमीशन को ये पूर्ण अधिकार है। तो एक प्रकार से इलेक्शन कमीशन ने जो निर्णय श्री शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व में शिवसेना और सिंबल का किया है, उसमें कोई बाधा नहीं है और वो पूरा अधिकार इलेक्शन कमीशन का है, ये स्पष्ट रूप से इसमें कहा है। इसके साथ साथ उन्होंने आगे ये भी कहा है, मैं इसको पढ़कर दिखाता हूं, कि द स्पीकर एंड द ईसीआई आर एम्पावर्ड टू कॉन्करेंटली एडजुडिकेट ऑन द पिटिशंस बिफोर देम अंडर द 10th शेड्यूल एंड अंडर पैराग्राफ 15 ऑफ द सिंबल्स ऑर्डर रेस्पेक्टिवली। While adjudicating petitions under paragraph 15 of the symbols order, the ECI may apply a test that is best suited to the fact and circumstances of the case before it. इसका मतलब ये दोनों को बिल्कुल अलग कर दिया है। फैक्ट्स एंड सर्कमस्टांसेस पे वो निर्णय ले सकते हैं, उन्होंने निर्णय ले लिया है। अंतिम निर्णय जो भी वो लेंगे वो आपके सामने है। इसलिए मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि इस बारे में भी किसी के मन में अब कोई शंका नहीं होनी चाहिए। इसके साथ साथ स्पीकर को भी यह अधिकार दिया गया है कि 10th शेड्यूल के मायने रखते हुए पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कौन सी है, इसका प्राइमा फेसी डिसीजन स्पीकर करेंगे। और बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से कहा है, द स्पीकर वुड प्राइमा फेसी डिटरमिन who the political party is for the purpose of adjudicating disqualification petitions under paragraph 2(1) of the 10th schedule where 2 or more factions claim to be the political party। तो स्पीकर साहब को भी अब यह अधिकार है कि दो गुटों में से पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ये कौन सी है, ये स्पीकर साहब प्राइमा फेसी पहले वो डिसाइड करेंगे उसके बाद फिर ये डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन पिटीशंस के ऊपर आगे में डिसीजन होगा। इसके साथ साथ एक और चीज बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कही है, द गवर्नर वॉज जस्टिफाइड इन इनवाइटिंग मिस्टर शिंदे टू फॉर्म द गवर्नमेंट। इसका मतलब यह है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट बहुत स्पष्टता से कहता है कि गवर्नर साहब ने शिंदे जी को मुख्यमंत्री पद की शपथ लेने का जो न्योता दिया वो सही है। इसका ही मतलब यह होता है कि शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व में जो सरकार तैयार हुई है वो लेजिटिमेट है, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है, और इसलिए हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। जो लोग ये कहते थे कि ये सरकार संवैधानिक नहीं है, उनको इसका जवाब मिल गया होगा, बशर्ते वो अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट को मानते हो तो। क्योंकि कई बार सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर भी वो प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाते हैं, तो अगर देश के संविधान को सुप्रीम लेजिटिमेट है, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है, और इसलिए हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। जो लोग ये कहते थे कि ये सरकार संवैधानिक नहीं है, उनको इसका जवाब मिल गया होगा, बशर्ते वो अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट को मानते हो तो। क्योंकि कई बार सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर भी वो प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाते हैं, तो अगर देश के संविधान को और सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अगर वो मानते होंगे तो आज उनको इस बात का जवाब पूर्ण तरीके से मिल गया कि श्री एकनाथ शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व की सरकार ही संवैधानिक है, पूरे तरीके से लेजिटिमेट और लीगल सरकार ये है। आज उद्धव ठाकरे जी नीतीश कुमार जी के साथ एक पत्रकार वार्ता साझा कर रहे थे, और उस वार्ता में उन्होंने ये कहा कि मैंने नैतिकता के आधार पर इस्तीफा दिया था। नैतिकता की बात करना उद्धव ठाकरे जी को शोभा नहीं देता, क्योंकि मैं उनको सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं कि बीजेपी के साथ चुनकर आए और मुख्यमंत्री की कुर्सी के लिए कांग्रेस एनसीपी के साथ आप गए, उस समय इस नैतिकता को कौन से डिब्बे में आपने बंद किया था, इसका जवाब आप दीजिए। मूल रूप से उद्धव जी, आपने नैतिकता के आधार पर इस्तीफा नहीं दिया था, आपने डर के कारण इस्तीफा दिया था, क्योंकि आप जानते थे कि आपके लोग आपको छोड़कर चले गए हैं, आप विश्वास मत प्रस्ताव नहीं जीतेंगे, और एक प्रकार से हारने के बाद शर्मसार होना, इसको टालने के लिए आपने इस्तीफा दिया था। इसलिए नैतिकता की बात मत कीजिए। उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि नैतिकता के आधार पर शिंदे जी ने इस्तीफा देना चाहिए। इससे हास्यास्पद क्या हो सकता है कि जिस सरकार को सुप्रीम कोर्ट लीगल, लेजिटिमेट और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल ठहराता है, उस सरकार के मुखिया से वो इस्तीफा मांगते हैं। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उन्होंने जरूर इस निर्णय का अभ्यास करना चाहिए और उसके बाद इस प्रकार की बात कहनी चाहिए। मैं माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी से निवेदन करता हूं कि मुख्यमंत्री जी इस प्रेस वार्ता को संबोधित करें।
आजच्या पत्रकार परिषदेमध्ये उपस्थित सर्व मान्यवर उपमुख्यमंत्री जी आहेत आणि बाकी सर्व माझे सहकारी आणि पत्रकार मित्रांनो, सगळ्यात आधी मी आपलं मनापासून स्वागत करतो आणि आजचा सुप्रीम कोर्टाचा निकाल,
Today's Supreme Court order,
आपल्या लोकशाहीमध्ये अपेक्षित असलेला निकाल लागल्याबद्दल मी आमच्या सगळ्यांना शुभेच्छा मलाही दिल्यात, पण तुम्हालाही देतो शुभेच्छा सगळ्यांना। खरं म्हणजे
is something that strengthens our democracy.
आणि
I'm congratulating everyone because truth has prevailed.
सुप्रीम कोर्टामध्ये
And Supreme
आज
Court,
आपण आलेला निकाल देखील पाहिला, त्याच्यामध्ये काही कायदेशीर आणि टेक्निकल बाबींचा उल्लेख आदरणीय देवेंद्रजींनी या ठिकाणी
we've
आपल्या
seen
समोर
that
केलेला आहे।
several technical aspects of
खरं
the
म्हणजे
decision has been elaborated by Devendra
आज आपण
Fadnavis.
जर पाहिलं तर मी जेव्हा आपण मला विचारत होता त्यावेळेस मी सांगत होतो की लोकशाहीमध्ये
That whenever you had asked me this,
बहुमताला
I've
महत्व
always
आहे आणि या देशामध्ये
informed you all that in a
कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन
democracy
आहे,
it is important
कायदा आहे, नियम आहे, सगळंच आहे।
to consider the voices of people.
आणि त्याच्या बाहेर कुणालाही जाता येणार नाही, हे माझे शब्द नेहमी आपल्याला
As
आठवत
per
असतात.
the constitution,
आणि
people
आम्ही
have to
सरकार
abide
जे
by it,
स्थापन
no one
केलं
can go against
ते
it.
पूर्णपणे कायदेशीर चौकटीत
I have time
बसून
and against
कायदेशीर
again
सगळ्या
mention that
बाबींची पूर्तता करून आम्ही सरकार
Even
स्थापन केलं आणि बहुमताचं
now when
सरकार
we formed our government,
स्थापन झालं. आणि
it was
आज
formed constitutionally,
सुप्रीम
legally
कोर्टाने
taking all the aspects in mind.
त्याच्यावर शिक्कामोर्तब केलेला आहे.
And today Supreme Court has
आणि त्यामुळे अनेक लोक यापूर्वी
given an approval to it.
घटनाबाह्य सरकार, बेकायदेशीर सरकार
Many people
अशा
before this
प्रकारचं म्हणून स्वतःची समाधान आणि स्वतःची पाठ थोपटून घेत होते.
ended up calling it
परंतु त्यांना आज सुप्रीम
an
कोर्टाने
unconstitutional
एक
government.
घटनाबाह्य सरकार म्हणणाऱ्यांना चांगली चपराक दिली आहे आणि खऱ्या अर्थाने त्यांना घटनाबाह्य
Supreme Court
सरकार
has
म्हणणाऱ्यांना
criticized these
कालबाह्य
people,
केलेलं आहे.
who criticize the
आणि
government.
म्हणून आज आपला हा जो निर्णय सुप्रीम कोर्टाचा आलाय त्याचा मी मनापासून आणि आम्ही
And
सगळ्यांनी
which is
स्वागत
why
केलेलं आहे.
decision that has been taken by Supreme Court
काही
has
जे
been
काही
accepted and appreciated by us.
त्यांच्या निर्णयामध्ये काही गोष्टींचा उल्लेख केला, त्यामध्ये आमचं
Supreme
देखील
Court has
आर्ग्युमेंट
made
म्हणजे
a
आमची
mention
भूमिका हीच होती
of some
की
of these aspects
डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनचा अधिकार जो आहे तो अध्यक्षांना
earlier
आहे,
mentioned as
अध्यक्षांकडे
well.
तो अधिकार येईल
such as
आणि
the
मेरिट
fact
प्रमाणे
that
तेच अपेक्षित
the
असा
right
निकाल
to disqualify
सुप्रीम कोर्टाने दिला
lies with
आणि हे अधिकार
the
जे
speaker
डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनचे अधिकार अध्यक्षांकडे दिले. त्याचबरोबर
and the Supreme Court has
निवडणूक
given
आयोगाने जो
the
निर्णय
right for
घेतला होता
disqualification
त्याही
to
बाबतीमध्ये
speaker.
विरोधी पक्षाने म्हणजे
Apart from that,
पूर्वीच्या
also the
लोकांनी
decision taken by Election Commission
माजी मुख्यमंत्री आणि ते सगळ्या टीमने म्हटलं होतं की
earlier
निवडणूक सुप्रीम कोर्टामध्ये प्रकरण असताना निवडणूक आयोग कसा
questioned
निर्णय घेऊ शकतो.
by the former Chief Minister.
सुप्रीम कोर्टाने भाष्य केलं की निवडणूक
He
आयोग
had mentioned how
हा
can
अधिकार
Election
त्यांना आहे.
Commission took a stance
आणि
like this
म्हणून
which should be criticized
निवडणूक
by
आयोगाने
Supreme Court.
शिवसेना पक्ष म्हणून आम्हाला रेकग्नाइज केलं, धनुष्यबाण सिम्बॉल देखील आम्हाला दिला.
When Election Commission had recognized us
हे
as
सर्वश्रुत आहे.
the actual Shiv Sena, they had also given us the party symbol.
त्यामुळे खऱ्या अर्थाने अध्यक्षांना जे अधिकार दिले त्यामध्ये डिस्क्वालिफिकेशनचे अधिकार, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी
This
जी
is where
आहे,
we see
पॉलिटिकल पार्टी आणि लेजिस्लेटिव्ह पार्टी याच्यामध्ये देखील त्यांनी भाष्य केलं. आणि म्हणून आम्ही जो निर्णय घेतला
there was a
बहुमताचा
distinguish
त्या
that was
2-3
made
महिन्यात
between
3 महिन्यानंतर
political party and
निवडणूक
legislative
आयोगाने
party. Legislative party.
तो निकाल दिला की आम्ही शिवसेना आणि धनुष्यबाण
After
आमच्याकडे 2-3 महिन्यापूर्वी जो आम्ही निर्णय घेतला तो बहुमताचा निर्णय होता आणि त्यावेळेस देखील लेजिस्लेटिव्ह पार्टी बरोबर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी देखील आम्हीच होतो असे या ठिकाणी मी सांगू शकतो. आणि त्याचा अधिकार जो आहे अध्यक्षांकडे दिलाय, अध्यक्ष त्याच्यावर मेरिटवर निर्णय घेतील.
The speaker will now decide
या
on
सगळ्या
these things on
जर बाबी आपण बघितल्या त्याच्यामध्ये माजी मुख्यमंत्र्यांनी राजीनामा दिला, नैतिकतेच्या आधारावर आता देवेंद्रजी म्हणाले त्यांना माहित होतं त्यांच्याकडे बहुमत नाहीये
and says that he done that on the basis of morality.
अल्पमतामध्ये आलेलं सरकार आहे.
Even Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis mentioned about this,
राज्यपालांनी देखील
that
त्यावेळेस
he did not have the
त्याचं काही
majority.
इतर राज्याचं मी उदाहरण आपलं इकडचं पण झालं त्या बोंबईंचं आणि त्यावर मी बोलू इच्छित नाही. पण जेव्हा राज्यामध्ये जेव्हा परिस्थिती निर्माण होते आणि राज्यपालांनाच काय तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना माहित होतं त्यावेळेस सरकार अल्पमतात आलंय, सरकारचा गाडा कारभार चालला पाहिजे, त्यामुळे त्यांनी त्यांच्या अधिकारामध्ये तेव्हा निर्णय घेतला आणि आम्ही सरकार जे स्थापन केलं पूर्णपणे कायदेशीर घटनात्मक बाबींची काळजी घेऊन केलं, पूर्णपणे त्याच्यामुळे हेड काउंट झाला, ते सगळे तुम्ही साक्षीदार आहात. आणि म्हणून राजीनामा देण्याशिवाय काही दुसरा काय पर्याय होता. आणि नैतिकतेच्या ज्या काही गोष्टी इथे सुरू झालेल्या आहेत तर त्या बाबतीमध्ये देवेंद्रजी म्हणालेत की त्यावेळेस मॅन्डेट लोकांनी जनतेने कुणाला दिलं होतं, शिवसेना भाजपा युतीला. आणि मग नेमकं हा निर्णय घेताना जनमताचा आदर केला आहे. जनभावनेचा आदर केला.
Right now, this decision that
लोकांना
is being
अपेक्षित
taken
हवं असलेलं ते आम्ही केलंय. बाळासाहेबांच्या विचारांचा भूमिकेचा आम्ही आदर केलेला आहे.
voices of people have been
आणि भारतीय
respected.
जनता पक्ष
We
आणि
have
शिवसेना
also
मिळून निवडणूक लढवली
what
आणि
Balasaheb
सरकार
Thackeray always said.
दुसऱ्या बरोबर सत्तेसाठी खुर्चीसाठी त्यावेळेस बनवलं आणि हे सगळ्यांना माहित आहे.
He made the government then just because he wanted the CM-ship.
तेव्हा पुढे काय होईल आम्हाला माहित नव्हतं. खरं म्हणजे नैतिकता कोणी जपली हे
That
मला
time we
सांगण्याची
were
आवश्यकता नाही.
in the government.
खऱ्या अर्थाने
Who
बाळासाहेबांच्या
has
विचारांची शिवसेना वाचवण्याचं काम, त्याचं काँग्रेस
In fact, we've been the
राष्ट्रवादीकरण
one
करण्यात थांबवण्याचं काम
who
आम्ही केलं.
protected Balasaheb.
धनुष्यबाण वाचवण्याचं काम आम्ही केलं. तुम्ही तर तो गाण ठेवला होता. आणि
Balasaheb Shivsena.
त्यामध्ये
These states
आता मी देखील
the bow and arrow
पत्रकार
symbol.
परिषद थोडीशी बघितली. त्यामध्ये आम्ही पक्ष आहोत, आमचाच व्हीप लागणार. पण व्हीप लागायला तुमच्याकडे माणसं किती आहेत?
It
हा
was
एक
not
प्रश्न
protected
आहे.
by
त्यामुळे शेवटी
Congress and NCP.
बहुमताचा आदर सुप्रीम कोर्टाने केलाय आणि त्याचबरोबर अध्यक्ष जे आहेत आपले विधानसभेचे ते देखील या सर्व प्रकरणामध्ये मेरिटवर निर्णय घेतील आणि हा
The speaker will now decide the case on the basis of merit.
घटनाबाह्य बेकायदेशीर म्हणणाऱ्यांना आजच्या सर्वोच्च
This
न्यायालयाने
order
खरं म्हणजे त्यांच्या बाजूने निकाल दिल्यानंतर ते सगळी ती संस्था त्या सगळ्या गोष्टी चांगल्या असतात. पण निर्णय मेरिटवर दिल्यानंतर मात्र
this order was given
जे
on the
काही
basis of merit.
भाष्य केलं जातं हे देखील आपल्या सगळ्यांना माहीत आहे. आणि म्हणून कुणाचीही
And we see
दिशाभूल
despite that there have been comments that have been
प्रयत्न
made.
देखील यापुढे देखील करतील. परंतु आज सुप्रीम
People
कोर्टाने
are trying to
जे
misguide
काही
it.
पूर्ण
But Supreme
बहुमताचं
Court
सरकार आणि हे सरकार
has ensured
कायदेशीर घटनात्मक
that
आहे याच्यावर
the
शिक्कामोर्तब
government
केलेलं आहे. हे
which
जनतेचं
has the
सरकार
support of the
आहे,
majority,
जनतेच्या मनातलं सरकार आहे.
the
त्यामुळे
government
मी पुन्हा
which people
एकदा आज
support
सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाच्या
has been
निर्णयाचं
reinstated,
मनापासून या ठिकाणी
which
स्वागत
is why I am thankful and grateful to the
आज
Supreme
आखिर
Court
में
again.
सत्यमेव जयते कहते हैं. सत्य का विजय हुआ है और सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में जो महाराष्ट्र सरकार की जो केस थी उसमें ये सरकार जो है हमने गठित किया हुआ शिवसेना भाजपा का वो कानूनी तौर से घटनात्मक दृष्टि से योग्य है. इसमें शिक्कामोर्तब हुआ है. अब घटना बाह्य बोलने वालों को ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय ने काल बाह्य कर दिया है. उनको अभी अगर निर्णय को मानते होंगे तो हम लोग तो निर्णय को मानने वाले लोग हैं और हमने हमेशा कहा है कि जो भी निर्णय होगा मेरिट पे होगा. लोकशाही में बहुमत को महत्व होता है. मेजॉरिटी को बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंस देने का काम सभी जगह होता है और हम लोगों ने जो सरकार स्थापित किया है वो पूरी तरह से कानून और घटना इसका आदर करते हुए हम लोगों ने किया है. और जो जिनके पास बहुमत नहीं था उन्होंने रिजाइन किया है. और नैतिकता की बात अब करने से पहले अगर करते, जब चुनाव हुआ था, जब शिवसेना भाजपा की सरकार का जब गठित होने मतलब जो सार्वत्रिक चुनाव हुआ तब लोगों का मैंडेट ध्यान में रखते हुए अगर नैतिकता की बात करते तो शिवसेना बीजेपी का सरकार स्थापित हो जाता था. लेकिन सिर्फ और सिर्फ सत्ता पाने के लिए, कुर्सी पाने के लिए जब निर्णय लिया, ये जनता ने देखा है, महाराष्ट्र ने देखा है और उसी को सुधारने का काम हम लोगों ने किया है. जो मैंडेट था, जो बरसों से शिवसेना भाजपा की अलायंस गठबंधन था, उसी के साथ सरकार बना दिया हम लोगों ने. और निवडणूक चुनाव आयोग ने भी उसके ऊपर शिक्कामोर्तब कर दिया. जब हम लोगों ने निर्णय लिया उसके बाद 3-4 महीने में ही चुनाव आयोग ने हमारे को पार्टी का दर्जा दे दिया, शिवसेना, और सिंबल धनुष्यबाण दे दिया. और ये पूरी तरह मेरिट में हुआ है. आरोप किसने लगाया उनके ऊपर मैं आज नहीं टिप्पणी करना चाहता हूँ. लेकिन इसके बाद आज का जो निर्णय है, और जब रिजाइन की बात होती है, रिजाइन जब आपके पास बहुमत ही नहीं था, जो अल्पमत की सरकार हुई थी, सब लोग जानते हो, आप भी जानते हो कितने लोग बचे थे। और फिर एक बात कहूंगा कि लोकशाही में ये मेजॉरिटी बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है, और तभी जाके उनको पता था कि हमारी हार हो जाएगी, पराभव हो जाएगा, और रेजिग्नेशन हुआ है। और राज्यपाल गवर्नर महोदय जी ने परिस्थिति का जायजा लेने के बाद निर्णय लिया, और उस निर्णय को भी जायज यहाँ पर ठहराया गया है। और इसीलिए मैं इतना ही आज कहूँगा, शिवसेना बचाने का काम, धनुष्यबाण जो कई वर्षों से बाबा साहब ठाकरे जी की भूमिका जो है, आइडियोलॉजी बचाने का काम हम लोगों ने किया है, और इसीलिए जनता ने भी हमें बहुत ही सपोर्ट किया है। और इसलिए मैं फिर एक बार कहूँगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के आज के निर्णय का मैं तहे दिल से फिर एक बार स्वागत करता हूँ और धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ।
एक एक करो शांति के साथ।
नाही, नंतर त्यांनी सांगितलं की जेव्हा परिस्थिती निर्माण झाली त्याप्रमाणे तो निर्णय घेतला। बरं, आता एकच, मी आता सुप्रीम कोर्टाच्या किंवा राज्यपालांच्या भूमिकेवर बोलू इच्छित नाही। परिस्थितीनुसार राज्यपालांनी निर्णय घेतला, त्यावेळेस जर समजा फ्लोर टेस्ट झाली असती आणि पराभव झाला असता, मग राज्यपालांचा निर्णय योग्य होता असं म्हटलं असतं। त्यामुळे परिस्थितीनुसार त्यांनी निर्णय घेतला, पूर्णपणे बहुमत सरकारच्या बाजूने होतं। हेडकाउंट झालं, आपण सगळे साक्षीदार आहात।
The head count was clearly in the favor of the government when this decision was taken. I do not wish to comment further on this. If the floor test should have been done for resignation, it would have still been justified similarly.
सरकार बनाने के लिए गवर्नर ने जो इनवाइट भेजा था, आपने दूसरा पैराग्राफ पढ़ा, लेकिन उसके ऊपर का पैराग्राफ कहता है कि गवर्नर वाज नॉट जस्टिफाइड इन कॉलिंग अपॉन मिस्टर ठाकरे टू प्रूव हिज मेजॉरिटी ऑन द फ्लोर ऑफ द हाउस। तो इस मुद्दे पर क्या कहेंगे?
देखिए, सवाल ये है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने टिप्पणी की है, लेकिन इस टिप्पणी के बाद उसको उल्टा तो नहीं किया है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसको स्ट्राइक डाउन तो नहीं किया है। मूलतः ये होता है कि गवर्नर के सामने कुछ ऑप्शंस होते हैं। उदाहरण के तौर पर जो एक लैंडमार्क जजमेंट है मुंबई का, उस मुंबई के जजमेंट में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये कहा कि जब भी ऐसी परिस्थिति आती है कि गवर्नर का एक सब्जेक्टिव सेटिस्फैक्शन होता है कि किसी सरकार के पास मेजॉरिटी नहीं है, तो गवर्नर ने MLAs की परेड नहीं करना है, उन्होंने फ्लोर टेस्ट के लिए बोलना है। तो हो सकता है कि उसके आधार पर उस समय गवर्नर ने यह निर्णय लिया हो। अब ये निर्णय सही है कि गलत है, ये सर्वोच्च न्यायालय देख सकता है, उसके ऊपर टिप्पणी कर सकता है। कौन सी कंडीशन में गवर्नर ने उसका निर्णय लिया, ये गवर्नर साहब बता सकते हैं। लेकिन मूल रूप से इस बात को आप समझिए कि ये टिप्पणी करने के बावजूद उस निर्णय को या हुई जो प्रोसेस है, स्टेटस को एंटे, ये नहीं किया जा सकता। ये स्पष्ट रूप से जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट कहता है, तो मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि आगे आने वाले दिनों में किस प्रकार से निर्णय लेते समय गवर्नर साहब ने क्या क्या करना चाहिए, मैं ऐसा मानूंगा कि उसके लिए एक प्रकार से उन्होंने एक राह दिखाई है। और जहां तक व्हिप का सवाल है, उसमें उन्होंने ये कहा है कि पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ये व्हिप को अपॉइंट करती है। तो उन्होंने कहा एम्बिलिकल कॉर्ड ये उसको सीवियर नहीं किया जा सकता, उसको तोड़ा नहीं जा सकता। लेकिन पॉलिटिकल, हमारा इंटरप्रिटेशन बहुत स्पष्ट है। पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कौन है? पॉलिटिकल पार्टी एकनाथ शिंदे जी है, क्योंकि क्योंकि इलेक्शन कमीशन ने, हमने जो उनके सामने मांग की थी, उस मांग के आधार पर शिंदे जी की याचिका को मान्य करते हुए पॉलिटिकल पार्टी उनको किया है। और अब इसका फैसला स्पीकर को लेना है, तो उससे पहले इसके ऊपर डिस्कशन करना ये गलत होगा। अब स्पीकर ये फैसला करेंगे कि उस समय पॉलिटिकल पार्टी शिंदे जी थे या और कोई था।
और उसमें मैं थोड़ा ऐड करना चाहता हूं कि जब भी हम लोगों ने ये डिसीजन लिया सरकार बनाने का, उसके बाद 3 महीने के बाद चुनाव आयोग ने तो हमारे को पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का दर्जा दे दिया था।
एक चीज और मैं कहना चाहता हूं, आपसे हाथ जोड़कर निवेदन करता हूं कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले से पहले कई नेता और चंद पत्रकार ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट बन गए थे और उन्होंने कई फैसले सुना दिए थे। तो आप तो सारे बहुत समझदार पत्रकार हो। अब चूंकि निर्णय स्पीकर साहब को लेना है तो इसलिए उसके बारे में स्पेक्युलेटिव बोलना ये सही नहीं होगा, इसलिए उसके ऊपर सवाल करना ये भी ठीक नहीं होगा।
उद्धव ठाकरे आजही म्हणतात की हे पक्षाचं नाव आहे, ते माझंच आहे, हे मी कोणाला देऊ देणार नाही, हे कोण घेऊ शकणार नाही।
मग ते आता सुप्रीम कोर्टाच्या वर आहेत, निवडणूक आयोगाच्या वर आहेत। आता क्लिअर आहे निवडणूक आयोगाने सिम्बॉल दिलाय आणि हे संभ्रम पसरवण्याचा मी ऐकलं ते। आता ते कोणाला व्हीप देऊ शकतात? शिवसेना म्हणून देऊ शकतात का ते? शिवसेना आम्ही आहोत, धनुष्यबाण आम्ही आहोत, सहानुभूती आता लोकांची सहानुभूती मिळाली असती। तुम्ही भाजप बरोबर सरकार बनवलं असतं तर तुम्ही कोणाबरोबर सरकार बनवलं? ज्यांच्या बरोबर निवडून आलात, निवडणुका लढवल्यात, बाळासाहेब मोदी साहेबांच्या आणि बस कोणाबरोबर गेलात? ते दुरुस्त केलं। लोकांची सहानुभूती उलटी आहे, कुणाकडे लोक आम्हाला प्रतिसाद देत आहे।
PM Modi's picture, but then you change your stance after that. How would you gain sympathy after this?
नाही, हे बघा, ऑब्झर्वेशन आणि निर्णय आता त्याच्यामध्ये तोही अधिकार अध्यक्षांकडे दिलेला आहे। त्यामुळे आम्ही तेव्हा कोण पार्टी होती आणि कोण लेजिस्लेटिव्ह पार्टी आणि पॉलिटिकल पार्टी हे निर्णय घेण्याचा अधिकार कोणाला दिलाय? बरं, मी मगाशी म्हटलं, आताही म्हणतोय, आम्ही निर्णय घेतल्यानंतर 3-4 महिन्यात निवडणूक आयोगाने निर्णय दिला होता।
we have the support of people.
आता सरकार पडणार, गडणार, किती वेळा तुम्हीच दाखवलं ना? आज झालं त्याच्यावर शिक्कामोर्तब।
How many times would the government fall and we form the game?
असं म्हटलेलं नाही, असं म्हटलेलं नाही, असं आहे, असं बिलकुल त्यांनी म्हटलेलं नाही की आम्ही त्यांना पुन्हा आणलं असतं। त्यांनी असं म्हटलंय की आता विषयच येत नाही, त्याच्यामुळे स्टेटस को अँटी होऊ शकत नाही। असं कुठेही म्हटलं नाही की त्यांनी राजीनामा दिला नसता तर त्यांना आम्ही परत आणलं असतं। त्यांनी म्हटलंय की ही सर्कमस्टन्सेसच नाहीये, त्यांनी राजीनामा दिलाय, त्याच्यामुळे
that the Supreme Court had mentioned that had he not resigned he would have gotten the position. Here the mention that Supreme Court is that there is no status quo, there is no way
right interpretation करा, चुकीचं interpretation
that this particular court can stand. People interpret the order right.
आनंद जितका आपल्याला झालाय, मला वाटतं त्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त आनंद आपल्या इतर आमदारांना झाला असेल, कारण की अनेकांची प्रतीक्षा ही विस्ताराकडे होती।
ते पण होईल ना, हो, सगळ्यांना होईल, लवकरच होईल।
वारंवार चर्चा जाता हे सरकार कायदेशीर झालेलं, शिक्कामोर्तब झालेलं आहे, मध्यंतरी चर्चा इथून झाली
नाही, आता तुम्हाला पण पटलंय ना कायदेशीर आहे? पहिले ते सांगा, नाही तर आता आणखी कोणतरी मध्ये ते
इतर पक्षाचे नेतेही येणार, बरीच चर्चा
कुठे येणार
तुमच्याकडे, आता ते इन्कमिंग कधी सुरू होणार?
नाही, ते सुरूच आहे ना, आता किती सरकार स्थापन केल्यापासून सुरू आहे, कुठे थांबलंय? अरे ते पण तुम्हाला, आता तुम्ही काहीतरी कितीतरी प्रवेशांना तुम्ही स्वतः होतात ना, सगळे येत आहेत।
सरकारला कुठलाही धोका नाही, त्यांना जास्त विश्वास होता पुन्हाहीपेक्षा की तुमच्या सरकारला अजिबात धोका नाही, मेजॉरिटी तुमच्याकडे आहे। अजित पवारांबद्दल काय म्हणतो?
अजित पवारच नाही, ज्या ज्या माणसाला कायदा कळतो अशा प्रत्येकाला हे माहिती होतं की सर्वोच्च न्यायालय अशी कुठली एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी कंडिशन नाही आहे की ज्या कुठलाही
extraordinary condition that the disqualification would have taken place.
हे माहिती होतं की सर्वोच्च न्यायालय हे लोकशाही अधिकार स्पीकरला दिले आहेत, ते स्पीकरला सांगेल आणि म्हणून कदाचित त्यांनी त्या
संदर्भात has given the right to the speaker.
उद्धव ठाकरे गुट के अन्य विधायकों ने फैसले के बाद आपसे संपर्क किया है आपके साथ जुड़ने के लिए?
अरे भैया, अभी तो फैसला अभी हुआ है ना, और अभी संपर्क तो अभी उसके ऊपर अभी मैं भाष्य नहीं करना चाहता हूँ।
नाही, मी तो मगाशीच दिला ना सल्ला. मी मगाशीच सांगितलं की काही नेते हे स्वतः सर्वोच्च न्यायालय झाले होते, त्यांना सल्ला देण्याएवढा मी मोठा नाही, पण मला असं वाटतं सर्वोच्च न्यायालयात एखादी केस असताना अशा प्रकारे आपणच सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाने आपल्यालाच कायदा समजतो अशा आविर्भावात वावरणाऱ्यांनी यातनं थोडा धडा घेतला पाहिजे.
नाही, आज पण सुरू होता ना सुप्रीम कोर्टाचा निकाल, म्हणजे सुरू व्हायच्या आधी सुरू होतं ना काही लोकांचं, आम्ही बघत होतो थोडं.
पण त्यांच्यावर काही परिणाम होईल असं मला वाटत नाही. अरे भाई, नीतीश कुमार आप तो कोई भी है.
सेना बीजेपी यहाँ महाराष्ट्र में मजबूत है और फिर चुनाव लड़ेगी, पूरे मेजोरिटी के साथ जीतेगी.
बस चला चला पेन्शन.
Rashid Kirbai, catch me on CNN News 18 as I join the channel's non-stop coverage on Karnataka elections on the 13th of May.
And hence it was of very, very low intensity. Now remember the blast that happened on Saturday, at least 6 people got injured, whereas the blast that happened on Monday, another person got injured. He had a few splinters on his legs. Now this entire investigation is now being carried out.
A development coming out of Amritsar, where early this morning the area around the Golden Temple saw the third blast it's seen since just Saturday. Now, in the blast that took place this morning, 5 people have already been arrested. Now, the blast itself took place in the early hours of the morning. And as we just told you, this is the third blast the area has seen in just the last 7 days. Now, according to central agency sources, a kind of potassium chlorate was actually possibly used in the making of the explosion itself. Sources have further said that the blast seems to be more to provoke than to harm, with the timing of the last 2 blasts coinciding with the fact that there were lesser people in the area because it took place early in the morning. Now, the Punjab Police DGP is expected to brief the media over all of these attacks. Let's take a look. This is a walkthrough, a ground report that my colleague Rajiv Sharma brought us from the ground. Take a look.
मंदिर साहिब के बिल्कुल पास श्री गुरु रामदास सराय में एक धमाका होता है। 12:10 पर इसकी सूचना पुलिस को मिलती है और पुलिस कमिश्नर खुद मौके पर पहुंचते हैं। तो इस समय हम उसी जगह पर मौजूद हैं। आप देख सकते हैं कि श्री गुरु रामदास जो सराय है उसका बिल्कुल ये पिछला हिस्सा है और आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर गलियारा जो बना हुआ है जहाँ पर जो लोग हैं वो सैर करते हैं। तो इसी इलाके में कहा जा रहा है कि रात को तीसरा जो ब्लास्ट है वो हुआ था। जैसे पुलिस को जानकारी मिली तो पुलिस कमिश्नर नौनिहाल सिंह खुद यहाँ पर पहुंचे। उसके बाद जांच जो है वो शुरू की गई।
हमारे को रात को 12 बजे के आसपास, 12:15 के आसपास यहाँ पे इंटीमेशन आई थी कि यहाँ पे एक लाउड साउंड हैज बीन हर्ड। इट इज सस्पेक्टेड दैट देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि एक एक्सप्लोजन और हुआ है, बट बिकॉज अभी अंधेरा है और ये इस बिल्डिंग के पीछे हुआ है, वहाँ पे अभी तक एक कंफर्म नहीं हो पाया है कि वेदर इट इज अ ब्लास्ट और कोई और इंसिडेंट है। आर FSL टीम इज ऑन द स्पॉट, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं एंड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स, एज पार्ट जो हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, हम सस्पेक्ट्स को राउंड अप कर रहे हैं, लोगों को वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं, पूछताछ कर रहे हैं।
बड़े लंबे समय तो मैं देख ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਰੀਅਸਲੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਫਿਰਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2-4 ਦਿਨ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2 ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬਲਾਸਟ ਹੋਏ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਬਲਾਸਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ
I'm Rashid Kidwai. Catch me on CNN News 18 as I join the channel's non-stop coverage on Karnataka elections on the 13th of May.
Bhagwant Mann should spend more time on focusing on the law and order situation of the state rather than arresting journalists who show the truth of the mirror of truth to the entire Kejriwal and Bhagwant Mann establishment.
सिर्फ इंसिडेंट ऐसा हुआ जहां पर एक्सप्लोजन हुआ है जो अमृतसर साहिब के
Okay, we're now moving to more details in this same case. This is a CNN News 18 exclusive on the Amritsar blast probe. Remember, we told you that 5 people had been arrested already in relation to the explosion that took place this morning in particular. Now, top intelligence sources are telling us that the blasts were done by 2 individuals, possibly to give a message against the atrocities that have been taking place against Sikhs. We're learning that one of those 2 was a former government employee. Now, we do have more details about the person. We are learning that he was upset, as we just told you, due to what he perceived were anti-Sikh activities taking place across the state. My colleague Anshul is with us to bring us more details. Anshul, some media outlets are also saying that the suspect distributed pamphlets at the site when the explosion took place, and those pamphlets also contained some information. Bring us some context, please, as to what took place early this morning and as to what police are finding now in their probe.
So yes, the police is carrying out a detailed investigation in this entire matter. If you see, initially the kind of reports that we picked up from Amritsar, the DGP himself and the other police sources on the ground said that this does not seem like a terror attack and this seems like a case of property dispute. But now, since the person has been taken into custody, it has now very clearly been revealed about the nitty-gritties of this entire operation that was carried out by these 2 individuals. Basically, they wanted to give a message of atrocities against Sikhs, and hence these low-intensity blasts were carried out. Now, these bombs that were used, these were crude bombs, and these were not ID or any other sort of sophisticated bombs, but these were crude bombs that were used, and hence it was of very, very low intensity. Now, remember the blast that happened on Saturday, at least 6 people got injured, whereas the blast that happened on Monday, another person got injured. He had a few splinters on his legs. Now, this entire investigation is now being carried out.
A development coming out of Amritsar, where early this morning the area...
Good afternoon. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching CNN News 18. I'm Ridhima Bhatnagar. Our top focus is coming from what the Supreme Court has said as far as the Maharashtra crisis is concerned. The Supreme Court today pronounced their verdict on a batch of cross petitions which had been filed by the Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and even the Uddhav Thackeray factions. A 5-judge constitutional bench headed by the Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud pronounced that it cannot order the restoration of Uddhav government as he resigned without facing a floor test, although the governor's decision for floor test was wrong. The bench also added that the speaker was wrong in appointing the whip of the Eknath Shinde group. The court further said that the exercise of the discretion by the governor was not in accordance with the constitution and that the governor erred in judgment that the Mahavikas Aghadi had no majority. The court has also ordered that the speaker will decide on the disqualification of the MLAs.
दिनों से हमारी लड़ाई चल रही थी सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में, आज आप भी आ गए और वो निर्णय भी आ गया। इस देश में अब प्रजातंत्र उसकी रक्षा करना हमारा काम है। जैसे सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने कहा कि अगर मैं रिजाइन नहीं करता, मैं इस्तीफा नहीं देता तो शायद मैं वापस मुख्यमंत्री बन जाता। मैं मेरे लिए नहीं लड़ रहा हूँ, मेरी लड़ाई जनता के लिए है, मेरे देश के लिए, मेरे राज्य के लिए है। और भले हम इसके पहले राजनीति में विवाद तो होते रहते हैं, लेकिन एक मत तो हमारा हो गया है कि इस देश को हमें बचाना है, संविधान को बचाया है। हम सब मिलकर ये जो अपने देश को फिर से एक बार गुलाम बनाना चाहते हैं, उनको घर भेजेंगे और मुझे पक्का भरोसा है पूरी जनता हमारा इंतजार कर रही है।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट बहुत स्पष्टता से कहता है कि गवर्नर साहब ने शिंदे जी को मुख्यमंत्री पद की शपथ लेने का जो न्योता दिया वो सही है। इसका ही मतलब ये होता है कि शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व में जो सरकार तैयार हुई है वो लेजिटिमेट है, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है और इसलिए हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। जो लोग ये कहते थे कि ये सरकार संवैधानिक नहीं है, उनको इसका जवाब मिल गया होगा, बशर्ते वो अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट को मानते हो तो, क्योंकि कई बार सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर भी वो प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाते हैं। तो अगर देश के संविधान को और सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अगर वो मानते होंगे तो आज उनको इस बात का जवाब पूर्ण तरीके से मिल गया कि श्री एकनाथ शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व की सरकार ही संवैधानिक है, पूरे तरीके से लेजिटिमेट और लीगल सरकार ये है।
हम लोगों ने जो सरकार स्थापित किया है वो पूरी तरह से कानून और घटना इसका आदर करते हुए हम लोगों ने किया है, और जो जिनके पास बहुमत नहीं था उन्होंने रिजाइन किया है। और नैतिकता की बात अब करने से पहले अगर करते, जब चुनाव हुआ था, जब शिवसेना भाजपा की सरकार का जब गठित होने मतलब जो सार्वत्रिक चुनाव हुआ, तब लोगों का मैंडेट ध्यान में रखते हुए अगर नैतिकता की बात करते तो शिवसेना बीजेपी का सरकार स्थापित हो जाता था। लेकिन सिर्फ और सिर्फ सत्ता पाने के लिए, कुर्सी पाने के लिए जब निर्णय लिया, ये जनता ने देखा है, महाराष्ट्र ने देखा है, और उसी को सुधारने का काम हम लोगों ने किया है।
So what does the verdict from the Supreme Court really mean, and what really are the big takeaways? Let's break down all those details before we bring in our colleagues to try and understand what we can expect in the days and weeks to come. So what did we hear from the Supreme Court? The first takeaway was that there is going to be no change as far as the Shinde government is concerned. The Eknath Shinde-led government as of now stays, and the entire blame of that has actually been put on the decision that was taken by Uddhav Thackeray when he decided to resign and not actually face a floor test. And that is what the Supreme Court said, that we can't reinstate the ex-Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray because he resigned voluntarily and he did not face a floor test. If that wasn't the situation, possibly today things would have been very different for Uddhav Thackeray. The third takeaway is, and the Supreme Court has minced no words in questioning the role of the Speaker and the Governor as well. The Speaker to decide on the disqualification petition. This, of course, we'll have to see how this plays out. What we've also heard today from the top court is Speaker's decision to appoint the whip, in fact, was illegal. But when we got a reaction from the Shinde camp, they, in fact, have dismissed all this criticism and they've gone on to say we did everything by the book. All possible protocols were followed. What else did we hear from the top court? The top court also said the governor's actions weren't accordance to the rule of law. But despite acknowledging all of this, they cannot make Uddhav Thackeray the chief minister again. Things cannot go back to what they were simply because of the decision that Uddhav Thackeray took when he decided to step down as chief minister, because he thought that I don't have the numbers, so why should I face a floor test? The other takeaway is the floor test cannot be used as a resolution for an intra-party dispute, and thus things remain as they were. This is going to be a big relief as far as the Shinde faction is concerned, because that government still stays. Let's also now shift our focus to some breaking developments that are coming in. Sena News 18 has in fact spoken to Maharashtra Assembly Speaker Rahul Navrekar over Supreme Court's judgment on the Maharashtra political row. My colleague Anusha Soni has had that conversation. Let's listen in.
The court has fiercely criticized the role of the speaker. And in fact, on many counts, the court has said that the speaker did not act in accordance with the law. How do you understand this verdict? Your thoughts on it, sir?
I have had a patient hearing to that verdict, and nowhere has the court criticized the role of the speaker. The court has only simply interpreted provisions of Schedule 10, where they have said that when there is a discrepancy between the whip issued by the political party and the whip issued by a legislature party, preference should be given to the whip issued by the political party. As we read Schedule 10, at the point when the speaker had decided which whip should be recognized in 2022 June, July, at that point of time, nowhere does the 10th schedule clearly state that whether it is the political party or the legislature party that should be recognized. So at relevant point of time, based on the facts on record, a decision was taken. The court has further said that it is the speaker and only the speaker who will decide the disqualification petitions. The court has further said that who was in control of the political party and who was authorized to issue the whip in the political party is a matter to be decided only by the speaker. And therefore, the court has in fact infused confidence, expressed their confidence in the office of the speaker.
तो मैं क्या कहता, तुम मत दो इस्तीफा।
लेकिन आपके अधिकार गलत थे ऐसे बताया सर कोर्ट ने।
अब जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कुछ कह दिया है तो आप लोग का काम है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सही कहा गलत कहा उस पर व्याख्या करना, विवेचना करना, ये एनालिसिस्ट का काम है, ये मेरा काम नहीं है।
कोश्यारी साहब, एक चीज जानना चाहेंगे, जो फैसला लिया आपको सही लगा था? So there you see the first reaction.
Reaction there coming in from Bhagat Singh Koshyari, because remember today when the verdict came from the Supreme Court, the role of the Speaker and the Governor was also questioned. Let's also now bring in our colleagues. Vinaya Deshpande is joining us on the broadcast. We also have a legal correspondent, Ananya Bhatnagar, also joining us on the broadcast. So Vinaya, coming to you first, let's talk about what is the mood as far as the Uddhav camp is concerned. The Supreme Court's biggest takeaway was that things cannot go back to what they were simply because of that one decision that Uddhav Thackeray took when he decided to resign as the Chief Minister and not wanting to face a floor test. Does Uddhav Thackeray or people within the camp realize that this was a big mistake on their part?
Well, Ridhima, yes, it is an absolutely heartbreaking moment for the Uddhav Thackeray camp, because despite ticking on all the right boxes, that judgment has stayed short of giving back to the Uddhav Thackeray faction what it had rightfully claimed was its own. It had said that, we have the right to form this government as...
यानी कि अगर मैं मुख्यमंत्री हूँ, मेरे सामने कोई कर्मचारी रिश्वत ले रहा है, मैं उसे सस्पेंड भी नहीं कर सकता, मैं उसकी ट्रांसफर नहीं कर सकता। एजुकेशन सेक्रेटरी कौन होगा ये हम नहीं तय कर सकते, हेल्थ सेक्रेटरी कौन होगा ये हम नहीं तय कर सकते। ये आदेश प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 23 मई 2015 को पारित किया। 8 साल हो गए उन बातों को, 8 साल से संघर्ष कर रहे हैं हम लोग। इस दौरान इस आदेश को इस्तेमाल करके दिल्ली के कामों को जानबूझ के रोका गया। हम दिल्ली में स्कूल अच्छे करना चाहते थे तो वो जानबूझ के ऐसा एजुकेशन सेक्रेटरी बिठाएंगे जो कि काम ना करे। हम अगर मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाना चाहते हैं तो जानबूझ के ऐसा हेल्थ सेक्रेटरी बनाया जाएगा जो कि काम ना करे। जानबूझ के ऐसा फाइनेंस सेक्रेटरी बिठाया जाएगा जो हर चीज़ के अंदर अड़ंगा अड़ाए। तो इसको इस्तेमाल करके दिल्ली के हर काम को रोका गया। एक तरह से मेरे दोनों हाथ बांध दिए गए पीछे और मुझे नदी में फेंक दिया गया कि अब तैरो। ये तो ऊपर वाले का शुक्र है कि दोनों हाथ बंधे हुए होने के बावजूद भी हम किसी तरह से तैरते रहे और ऊपर वाला हमारा साथ देता रहा। इन सारी कठिनाइयों के बावजूद दिल्ली के अंदर हम लोगों ने इतना शानदार काम किया पिछले 8 साल के अंदर। तो आप सोच सकते हैं कि अगर हमारे पास पूरी पावर होती तो हम कितना ज़्यादा काम कर सकते थे। आज हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ के जो और 4 जजेस हैं उस बेंच में, संविधान पीठ में, उन सब के तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं कि उन्होंने हमारे साथ न्याय किया। मैं दिल्ली की जनता को केवल बधाई देना चाहता हूं और उनका शुक्रिया करना चाहता हूं कि जो इतना लंबा संघर्ष था उस संघर्ष में दिल्ली की जनता ने मेरा साथ दिया। दिल्ली की जनता के साथ के बिना मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता था। आज जो ये इतनी बड़ी जीत हुई है ये उन्हीं के आशीर्वाद, दिल्ली की जनता के आशीर्वाद और उनके साथ का, उनके सहयोग का नतीजा है। कदम कदम पे उन्होंने मेरा साथ दिया दिल्ली की जनता ने। अब हमें एक बहुत बड़ा मौका मिला है। दिल्ली का काम जो है अब ये 10 गुना स्पीड से होगा। आज के आदेश के बाद। बहुत बड़े बड़े काम होंगे अब दिल्ली के अंदर जो सोच भी नहीं सकते। सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है हमें एक ऐसा प्रशासन देना है दिल्ली के लोगों को जो कि रिस्पॉन्सिव हो, जो कि जनता की ज़रूरतों के प्रति सिंपैथेटिक और कंपैशनेट हो। तो अगले कुछ दिनों के अंदर आप देखेंगे बहुत बड़ा प्रशासनिक फेरबदल होगा। कई सारे ऑफिसर्स को, कर्मचारियों को ट्रांसफ़र किया जाएगा इस आधार पे कि उन्होंने अभी तक कैसा काम किया। कुछ ऐसे ऑफिसर्स हैं, कुछ ऐसे कर्मचारी हैं जिन्होंने पिछले कुछ महीनों में, 1-1.5 साल में दिल्ली की जनता के काम रोके।
Well, that was a press conference that was coming in by the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. This is as far as the jurisdiction row was concerned. Let's listen in to that conference.
ऑफिसर्स को चिन्हित करके उनको अपने कर्मों का फल तो भुगतना पड़ेगा, लेकिन बहुत सारे ऐसे कर्मचारी और ऑफिसर्स हैं जो बहुत घुटन महसूस कर रहे थे, ईमानदार लोग हैं, काम करना चाहते हैं। उन सारे कर्मचारियों को, उन सारे ऑफिसर्स को मौका मिलेगा काम करने का। उन सबको जो डेडवुड है, जो करप्ट हैं, जो इनएफिशिएंट हैं, उनको अच्छी पोस्टों से हटा के साइड किया जाएगा और जो अच्छे हैं, एफिशिएंट हैं, ईमानदार हैं, रिस्पॉन्सिव हैं, कंपैशनेट हैं, उन लोगों को, उन सारे अधिकारियों को और कर्मचारियों को मौका दिया जाएगा कि वो दिल्ली की जनता की सेवा कर सकें। सारे प्रशासनिक सिस्टम को भी दुरुस्त किया जाएगा। ये सारा सिस्टम भी सड़ा गला सिस्टम है। ऐसा सिस्टम बनाया जाएगा जो जनता के प्रति जवाबदेह हो और जनता के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिव हो, जनता की ज़रूरतों के प्रति रिस्पॉन्सिव हो। तो व्यवस्था के अंदर जितनी कमियां हैं, इन सारी कमियों को दूर किया जाएगा। तो पूरे सिस्टम को और ऑफिसर्स को और कर्मचारियों को जनता के प्रति जवाबदेह बनाया जाएगा और जनता के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिव बनाया जाएगा। एक लीन एंड थिन गवर्नमेंट तैयार की जाएगी। लीन, थिन, रिस्पॉन्सिव, कंपैशनेट एंड अकाउंटेबल गवर्नमेंट। ये हम चाहते हैं। दिल्ली, जैसे दिल्ली ने पूरे देश को शिक्षा का मॉडल दिया, हेल्थ का मॉडल दिया, अब एक ऐसे गवर्नेंस का, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का मॉडल हम जनता के सामने रखेंगे, पूरे देश के सामने रखेंगे। मैं देखता हूं कि कई ऐसी पोस्ट्स हैं जिनकी ज़रूरत नहीं है। उनमें कोई भी कर्मचारी या अधिकारी बैठ के जनता की 4 अड़चनें ही लगाता है। अगर वो ना रहे तो ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा। तो ऐसी पोस्ट्स को चिन्हित करके या तो उन्हें खाली छोड़ा जाएगा या उन्हें अबॉलिश कर दिया जाएगा। जहाँ जहाँ ज़्यादा पोस्ट्स की ज़रूरत है वहाँ ज़्यादा पोस्ट्स क्रिएट की जाएंगी। जहाँ जहाँ लोगों को ज़रूरत है वहाँ ज़्यादा पोस्ट, जैसे अब इतने मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बना रहे हैं, तो जब डॉक्टर्स की ज़रूरत है, पैरामेडिक्स, वहाँ और क्रिएट किए जाएंगे। तो अभी तक हम लोगों ने स्कूल, अस्पताल में एक मॉडल दिया। अब पंजाब के अंदर हम एक अच्छे लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, कानून व्यवस्था लागू कर रहे हैं। उसी तरह से दिल्ली अब कुशल प्रशासन का एक मॉडल पूरे देश के सामने देगा। मैं एक बार फिर से दिल्ली की जनता का बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं, जिन्होंने पूरे संघर्ष में हम लोगों का साथ दिया। अगर हैं जी, बिल्कुल होगी। सर्विसेज आने के बाद हम नई पोस्ट क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, पुरानी पोस्ट से अबॉलिश कर सकते हैं, कुछ भी कर सकते हैं। एसीबी अभी चुनी हुई सरकार के पास नहीं है, लेकिन विजिलेंस अब आ गया है। तो जो लोग अगर गलत काम करेंगे, भ्रष्टाचार करेंगे, कानून के हिसाब से काम नहीं करेंगे, उनके ऊपर विजिलेंस की कार्रवाई, डिसिप्लिनरी प्रोसीडिंग्स, विजिलेंस प्रोसीडिंग्स की जा सकती हैं।
शाम को आप एलजी साहब से मिलने जा रहे हैं, उसमें क्या बातचीत होने की संभावना है? क्या आप उनको अब यह अनुरोध करेंगे कि वो अब और किसी प्रकार का अड़ंगा ना लगाए? और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जो निर्देश दिया,
उनसे आशीर्वाद लेने जा रहा हूँ।
आपको लग रहा है कि ये पावर तो मिल गई है, पावर से ज़्यादा जिम्मेदारी बढ़ गई है अब आपकी, क्योंकि अब तक आप बहुत सारी अड़चनें भी आपने बताई, लेकिन अब वो काम आपको कराना ही होगा।
नहीं, जिम्मेदारी तो पहले भी थी। वो जिम्मेदारी विदाउट पावर थी, अब जिम्मेदारी विद पावर आ गई है। जिम्मेदार देखिए, जब भी जनता वोट देती थी तो वो तो यही कहती थी, जी हमने तो केजरीवाल को वोट दे दिया, अब केजरीवाल जाने पावर है कि नहीं है उसके पास। जनता को कि बेचारों को क्या पता TDR क्या होता है, आर्टिकल 239AA4 क्या होता है, उनको क्या पता बेचारों को। जनता तो वोट दे देती है, लेकिन हमारे पास पहले उन जिम्मेदारियों को पूरा करने की पावर नहीं थी, शक्ति नहीं थी। अब शक्ति दे दी है सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने हमें।
पहले जो आपके काम है, अगर आप याद दिलाना चाहें, कौन सी ऐसी फाइल है जो की हुई है और कौन से ऐसे काम है जो आप करना चाहेंगे तुरंत?
ऐसे बहुत सारे काम हैं जो पिछले कई सालों में अटके। पिछले 1 साल के अंदर तो आपने देखा कि किस तरह से पिछले साल लास्ट के महीने नवंबर तक आते आते मोहल्ला क्लिनिक के अंदर लैब टेस्ट्स बंद हो गए थे, दवाइयाँ बंद हो गई थी। जल बोर्ड जो है बजट, असेंबली ने बजट पास कर दिया, लेकिन कुछ ऑफिसर जो हैं वो बजट रिलीज़ नहीं कर रहे थे। हर डिपार्टमेंट का गला घोंट दिया गया था अफसरों को के ज़रिए, वो अब बंद हो जाएगा। अब जितने जो असेंबली के अंदर हम बजट प्रेजेंट करते हैं और जो जनता की बात रखते हैं, वो सारी चीज़ें अब हम कर पाएंगे।
सर, अधिकारियों की मीटिंग आपने बुलाई है, बड़े अधिकारियों, क्योंकि कहा जाता है कि यदि अब तक CS काम करते रहे तो क्या उन्हें मीटिंग के लिए आपने बुलाया?
जरूर बुलाएंगे, अब आने वाले टाइम में मीटिंग्स होती रहेंगी।
सर, अभी हाल के दिनों में बहुत सारे ऐसे फैसले एलजी ने लिए जो कि मतलब सरकार के अधिकारों का उल्लंघन करके खुद से लिए गए। क्या अब उन फैसलों को रिव्यू भी किया जाएगा?
वो फैसले कई सारे गलत हैं, इनफैक्ट कई सारे तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में पेंडिंग है। कल एल्डरमैन का केस आ रहा है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के अंदर, ट्यूसडे को DRC के चेयरमैन की अपॉइंटमेंट का केस आ रहा है। फिनलैंड जो हमारे टीचर्स को नहीं जाने दिया, उसका केस सुप्रीम कोर्ट के अंदर पेंडिंग है। जब मेंशन ही किया था हमने ये केसेस तीनों, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की टिप्पणी काफ़ी तल्ख थी कि ये कैसे LG साहब रोक सकते हैं। एल्डरमैन की अपॉइंटमेंट बिल्कुल गलत हुई है। जो DRC के चेयरमैन 4 महीने से फाइल LG साहब के पास पड़ी हुई थी, LG साहब ने अपॉइंटमेंट नहीं होने दी, तो हमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाना पड़ा। मुझे लगता है कि अब इतना सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाने की, हाई कोर्ट जाने की ज़रूरत शायद ना पड़े। अब शायद हम अपने स्तर के ऊपर ही कई सारे निर्णय
तो बहुत सारी चीजें ऐसी कही गई जिसमें ये भी कहा गया कि केंद्र जो है वो राज्य सरकारों की जो ताकत है, पावर है, वो छीनने का ना छीने, इस तरीके की लगता है आगे के लिए नजीर।
मैं यही कहना चाहता हूँ कि केंद्र सरकार एक तरह से, प्रधानमंत्री जी खासतौर एक तरह से पिता समान होते हैं। जैसे परिवार में पिता होता है, पिता समान होते हैं। पिता की जिम्मेदारी होती है कि सारे बच्चों को अच्छे से उनका पालन पोषण करें। अगर दिल्ली में आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार है तो वो हमारे भी प्रधानमंत्री हैं, हम भी उन्हीं की तरफ देखते हैं। चाहे बीजेपी की किसी राज्य में सरकार है, किसी में कांग्रेस की सरकार है, किसी में आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार है, वो सारे के सारे प्रधानमंत्री को एक तरह से पिता समान देखते हैं कि भाई ये कोई मुसीबत आएगी तो हमारी मदद करेंगे। लेकिन अगर जैसे ये 23 मई 2015 को आदेश पारित करके दिल्ली सरकार की पावर छीन ली गई, 8 साल तक हमें बिना पावर के काम करना पड़ा, काम रुक गया, किसका फायदा हुआ? आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने साबित कर दिया कि ये गलत था, ये ऑर्डर बिल्कुल गैर संवैधानिक ऑर्डर था। जितनी सख्त लैंग्वेज के अंदर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला है, उससे ये साफ जाहिर है कि ये ऑर्डर केंद्र सरकार का बिल्कुल गलत था। तो इतना गलत ऑर्डर उन्होंने पास किया, तो उसका मतलब तो यही था कि आम आदमी पार्टी की दिल्ली की सरकार को फेल करना उसका।
The atrocities that have been taking place against Sikhs, we're learning that one of those two was a former government employee. Now, we do have more details about the person. We are learning that he was upset, as we just told you, due to what he perceived were anti-Sikh activities taking place across the state. My colleague Anshul is with us to bring us more details. Anshul, some media outlets are also saying that the suspect distributed pamphlets at the site when the explosion took place, and those pamphlets also contained some information. Bring us some context, please, as to what took place early this morning and as to what police are finding now in their probe.
So yes, the police is carrying out a detailed investigation in this entire matter. If you see, initially the kind of reports that we picked up from Amritsar, the DGP himself and the other police sources on the ground said that this does not seem like a terror attack and this seems like a case of property dispute. But now, since the person has been taken into custody, it has now very clearly been revealed about the integrities of this entire operation that was carried out by these two individuals. Basically, they wanted to give a message of atrocities against Sikhs, and hence these low-intensity blasts were carried out. Now these bombs that were used, these were crude bombs, and these were not ID or any other sort of sophisticated bombs, but these were crude bombs that were used, and hence it was of very, very low intensity. Now remember, the blast that happened on Saturday, at least 6 people got injured, whereas the blast that happened on Monday, another person got injured. He had a few splinters on his leg. Now this entire investigation is now being carried out.
A development coming out of Amritsar, where early this morning the area around the Golden Temple saw the 3rd blast it's seen since just Saturday. Now, in the blast that took place this morning, 5 people have already been arrested. Now, the blast itself took place in the early hours of the morning. And as we just told you, this is the 3rd blast the area has seen in just the last 7 days. Now, according to central agency sources, a kind of potassium chlorate was actually possibly used in the making of the explosion itself. Sources have further said that the blast seems to be more to provoke than to harm, with the timing of the last 2 blasts coinciding with the fact that there were lesser people in the area because it took place early in the morning. Now, the Punjab Police DGP is expected to brief the media over all of these attacks. Let's take a look. This is a walkthrough, a ground report that my colleague Rajiv Sharma brought us from the ground. Take a look.
मंदिर साहिब के बिल्कुल पास श्री गुरु रामदास सराय में एक धमाका होता है। 12:10 पर इसकी सूचना पुलिस को मिलती है और पुलिस कमिश्नर खुद मौके पर पहुंचते हैं। तो इस समय हम उसी जगह पर मौजूद हैं। आप देख सकते हैं कि श्री गुरु रामदास जो सराय है उसका बिल्कुल ये पिछला
Welcome back. Thanks a lot for staying with us. The Supreme Court today pronounced the verdict on a batch of cross petitions filed by the Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and the Uddhav Thackeray factions. A 5-judge constitutional bench, which was headed by the CJI, pronounced that it cannot order the restoration of Uddhav government as he resigned without facing a floor test, although the governor's decision for a floor test was wrong. The bench also then added that the speaker was also wrong in appointing the whip of the Eknath Shinde group. The court further said that the exercise of discretion by the governor was not in accordance with what the constitution states, and that the governor was wrong in judgment that the Maha Vikas Aghadi had no majority. The court had ordered that the speaker will decide on the disqualification of the MLAs.
दिनों से हमारी लड़ाई चल रही थी सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में। आज आप भी आ गए और वो निर्णय भी आ गया। इस देश में अब प्रजातंत्र उसकी रक्षा करना हमारा काम है। जैसे सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने कहा कि अगर मैं रिजाइन नहीं करता, मैं इस्तीफा नहीं देता, तो शायद वो मैं वापस मुख्यमंत्री बन जाता। मैं मेरे लिए नहीं लड़ रहा हूँ। मेरी लड़ाई जनता के लिए है, मेरे देश के लिए, मेरे राज्य के लिए है। और भले हम इसके पहले राजनीति में विवाद तो होते रहते हैं, लेकिन एक मत तो हमारा हो गया है कि इस देश को हमें बचाना है, संविधान को बचाया है। हम सब मिलकर ये जो अपने देश को फिर से एक बार गुलाम बनाना चाहते हैं, उनको घर भेजेंगे और मुझे पक्का भरोसा है पूरी जनता हमारा इंतजार कर रही है।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट बहुत स्पष्टता से कहता है कि गवर्नर साहब ने शिंदे जी को मुख्यमंत्री पद की शपथ लेने का जो न्योता दिया वो सही है। इसका ही मतलब ये होता है कि शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व में जो सरकार तैयार हुई है वो लेजिटिमेट है, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है, और इसलिए हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। जो लोग ये कहते थे कि ये सरकार संवैधानिक नहीं है, उनको इसका जवाब मिल गया होगा, बशर्ते वो अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट को मानते हो तो, क्योंकि कई बार सुप्रीम कोर्ट पर भी वो प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाते हैं। तो अगर देश के संविधान को और सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अगर वो मानते होंगे तो आज उनको इस बात का जवाब पूर्ण तरीके से मिल गया कि श्री एकनाथ शिंदे जी के नेतृत्व की सरकार ही संवैधानिक है, पूरे तरीके से लेजिटिमेट और लीगल सरकार ये है।
Let's also now bring in our colleagues. Let's first bring in our legal correspondent, Ananya Bhatnagar, who is joining us on the broadcast. Politically speaking, Ananya, while we are getting reactions coming in from both camps, while Uddhav Thackeray camp is seeing this as a moral victory, the Shinde faction is seeing this as a real victory and saying that there is no instability as far as the government is concerned. But talking about the verdict itself, talk to us about the questions that have been raised by the Supreme Court over decisions or misjudgments that were taken as far as the governor and the speaker were concerned.
Well, definitely, the Supreme Court judgment, which runs into almost 141 pages, goes to speak volumes about the decisions that was taken by, in fact, the Speaker and the Governor. However, definitely the Eknath camp can actually rejoice, because ultimately, if we talk of the current scenario, if we talk of the practical implications of it, the Eknath Shinde government is sustaining. There is no kind of a threat to this particular government, though the Speaker has been asked to, in fact, decide on the disqualification proceedings of those rebel MLAs. But that would actually happen on the discretion of the Speaker only. Apart from that, a very important observation and direction that has been given by the topmost of the country is with regards to the whip of that particular political party. He has to be redetermined by inquiring into the party constitution, is what the directions of the topmost court of the country are. Very, very categorically speaking, it has also highlighted the role of the governor, saying that he was wrong in calling the flow test, but ultimately when the Bharatiya Janata Party went in and said that they have the support of the Eknath Shinde camp, and it totals down to the two-thirds of the majority of the House, he was not wrong in calling for a flow test, because Mr. Uddhav Thackeray himself resigned, and hence the whole and sole reason why there cannot be a reinstatement of that particular previous MVA government is because Uddhav Thackeray resigned even before a floor test could actually take place into this particular case. Importantly, a very, very crucial observation which would result as a precedent when it comes to cases like these in the future as well is that the floor test cannot be used to settle intra-party discourses. There has to be some other remedy that they need to go on to. And in fact, the floor test cannot be used to settle in intra-party disputes, is what the Supreme Court had to say.
Yeah, as you're rightly pointing out, multiple big takeaways as far as that verdict from the Supreme Court is concerned. But what does this then mean as far as the road ahead? What does this mean as far as the disqualification is concerned?
Well, the disqualification is completely on the minds of the Speaker. Now, the current Speaker, whoever is presiding and is currently there, is going to decide those particular proceedings. And since it is of the Eknath Shinde camp, we might see that there is some favorable orders with regards to the disqualification. However, he will have to take in course the direction of the Supreme Court and would have to also look into the factual matrix of the matter while giving out any kind of a decision on the disqualification proceedings in this particular case, because there are already directions of the Supreme Court for the Speaker to reconsider its, he has to see all of the disqualification notices and all the petitions have to be read in with. But apart from that, another role that has been assigned to the Speaker at this point of time is to determine who is the whip of that particular political party or the Shiv Sena. So we'll have to wait and watch a lot for the Speaker, to decide on and to inquire into. But at the same point of time, no threat to the current Eknath Shinde government in the state of Maharashtra.
Yeah, that's correct. Ananya, we'll just request you to stay on with us. Let's also now play out some conversations. CNN News 18's managing editor Zaka Jacob spoke to Maharashtra Minister Deepak Kesarkar on the judgment that came from the Supreme Court. Let's listen in.
You must have heard Mr. Thackeray just had a press conference along with the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, where he said that the Shinde government now has no moral authority or constitutional authority to continue in office because the Supreme Court has declared both the governor's action and the speaker's action as bona fide.
Maharashtra, with the support of Congress and NCP, who were rejected by the people of Maharashtra. The mandate of the people of Maharashtra is more important than anything else, and since he has resigned, the question of governor's decision does not arise at all. And as a whip, his whip, who is Mr. Prabhu, can always put before his part of the incidents before the Honorable Speaker, because they are claiming that attending a meeting not on the floor of the House, it is just not attending the meeting called by him, calls for disqualification. It is never written neither in the Act nor the rules framed under this Act. Okay. That's why I feel that these are all academic questions now. And these people are coming together just to defeat one person who is making proud to our country. and all Indians will take note of this and give them a proper reply when the parliament elections come.
Now that this legal hurdle has been crossed, do you believe it's time for the BJP and Mr. Shinde to call for the BMC election? And also, can you assure that in 2024, both parliamentary and Vidhan Sabha elections, it will be the BJP and Shinde faction that will go in united as an alliance?
We are not Shinde fraction, we are Shiv Sena, and we have that symbol also, and that is not challenged and not accepted by the Supreme Court also. We can function separately. That is what the Supreme Court has said. So we'll act separately. We are in alliance with BJP, all elections together.
All elections
we'll win
together.
it, and we'll work for the Maharashtra. Yes, yes, certainly.
Okay.
And that too, Fadnavis Sahib has clearly mentioned that under the leadership of Mr. Shinde, the election would be fought.
So that was a reaction that was coming in from the Shinde faction, saying we're extremely satisfied and happy as far as the verdict is concerned. Let's also now bring in our colleague Vinaya Deshpande. Vinaya, while Uddhav Thackeray is saying that I'm not just fighting for my position as a chief minister, but I'm actually fighting for the people, I want to understand, as far as the questions that have been raised on the role of the speaker and the governor, that possibly there were certain misjudgments, one in assuming that the MLA did not have majority. How is the Shinde faction responding to that criticism?
Well, the Shinde faction has claimed that they have faced what is a victory for them, and the court judgment clearly shows that there is a complete legal and constitutional validity. In fact, Eknath Shinde has cross-questioned Uddhav Thackeray, saying that he should not make it sound like a battle which is for a larger goal, because it was out of embarrassment that when Uddhav Thackeray knew that he did not have the numbers and he did not have any face to show to the House, that is how he had in fact resigned. So clearly we are seeing that a battle of words has ensued between both Uddhav Thackeray as well as Eknath Shinde, whereas Uddhav Thackeray has claimed that this is a moral victory for him. He has claimed there's a moral high ground on which he had tendered his resignation and has appealed to Eknath Shinde to do the same in the face of such a scathing judgment that has been passed by the Supreme Court. On the other hand, Eknath Shinde says that Uddhav Thackeray should not really be talking of morality, should not be taking any moral high ground for the kind of situation that he had created himself. In fact, Eknath Shinde faction has gone ahead to slam Uddhav Thackeray, saying that his own alliance partner Sharad Pawar had said in his autobiography about how there were differences in the MBA because of the way in which Uddhav Thackeray functioned as the chief minister, where he himself never attended office, and that led to a lot of differences. So Eknath Shinde seems to have received a shot in the arm after the judgment, as the judgment has said clearly that since Uddhav Thackeray resigned, there is no question of reinstating it. Eknath Shinde has clearly construed it as a shot in the arm, as a moral, legal as well as constitutional validity for his government.
Yeah, Vinay, we'll just request you to stay on with us. Let's also now bring in our colleague Yesha Kotak, who also in fact is now joining us on the broadcast. Yesha, just taking on as far as the questions that were raised on the judgments that were taken by the speaker as well as the governor, I believe we're also now getting a reaction that's coming in from Bhagat Singh Koshyari. What is he saying as far as the sequence of events that happened?
So in fact, now what we understand, particularly in this case, is that questions were raised on the speaker as well as the governor, Bhagat Singh Koshyari, who very well was the governor. Then there were questions raised on how he had in fact gotten these MLAs who had reached out with Eknath Shinde's letter. If we had seen that Supreme Court, particularly in their judgment, had said that only when a letter is given by Eknath Shinde, it cannot be held valid proof as to fact that these MLAs, these 40 MLAs who had in fact decided to step out and join Eknath Shinde, can be held ground. They in fact were expressing their displeasure, and this was not only just their displeasure, but apart from that, there was no consequence, or there was no these 40 MLAs had not showed any kind of an intent to leave MVA. This was the kind of stance that was taken by the Supreme Court then in this particular hearing when we speak of, and which is where we see that despite all these things which were mentioned, that the fact that the Speaker erred, the fact that the Governor erred, despite that the ruling has in fact gone in the favor of the Eknath Shinde as well as Devendra Fadnavis government. Yes.
I also want to understand, when we heard that press conference that came from Uddhav Thackeray, Yasha, he said that, you can ask me questions today about why I wanted to step down, why I wanted to resign. Possibly it was right, possibly it was not, but I thought it was the right moral thing to do. And that is what I think should be the decision of Eknath Shinde and his deputy as well, because that's the right thing to do if you're fighting for people and the state. How is the Shinde faction reacting to that?
So in fact, when we speak of the Shinde faction, they have time and again, of course, questioned Uddhav Thackeray. Here, when you speak of morality, we've seen that in the press conference that was held by Uddhav Thackeray, he said that he decided to step down because he thought that was the right thing to do for the democracy. However, when we heard Eknath Shinde, the Chief Minister himself speaking, he said that Uddhav Thackeray at that point had no option but to step down because he did not have the support of these MLAs. There were 40 MLAs who were with Eknath Shinde. So the stance that has been taken by Uddhav Thackeray that, he's done this on morality is in fact being questioned by the Shinde government. They're saying that he had in fact left his morality and decided to choose the chair of the Chief Minister. It was time and again also questioned in the press conference which was held by Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis and Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, wherein they said that in fact it was Uddhav Thackeray who had forgotten what the party stands for.
Okay, Yasha, we'll just request you to stay on with us. We'll request Vinay also to stay on with us. Let's listen into some other reactions.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का अगर आप निर्णय देखें तो हम खुश हैं कि देश में लोकतंत्र और न्याय व्यवस्था आज भी जिंदा है। संविधान मरा नहीं है या कोई संविधान की हत्या नहीं कर सकता। सत्ता आती है, सत्ता चली जाती है। सबसे पहले जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि जो शिंदे गुट का व्हीप है वही गैर कानूनी इलीगल है। उसका मतलब है वो लोगों ने जो व्हीप बजाया था वो गैर कानूनी है और हमारा जो व्हीप था उसने जो आदेश दिया है वो कानूनी है। वो उस व्हीप के मुताबिक तो सब लोग अभी डिस्क्वालीफाई हो जाएंगे। अगर उद्धव जी ने नैतिकता के आधार पर रिजाइन किया है, इस्तीफा नहीं देते, तो आज हम उस स्थिति में होते कि उद्धव ठाकरे जी को मुख्यमंत्री के तौर पर फिर एक बार स्थापित करते। उसका मतलब है जिस तरह से सरकार नई सरकार बनाई ये पूरी तरह से गैर कानूनी है।
कितना रिलीफ आप मानते हैं ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट की तरफ से आज?
बहुत बड़ा रिलीफ है क्योंकि महाराष्ट्र में जो पॉलिटिकल एटमॉस्फेयर जो खराब हुआ था और एक गंदी राजनीति महाराष्ट्र में चल रही थी वो भी खत्म हो जाएगी और एक हिस्टोरिकल डिसीजन है। इस डिसीजन की वजह से जितने भी रीजनल पार्टी है उनको एक सबक मिलेगा क्योंकि आप देखेंगे जितने रीजनल पार्टी है वो फैमिली परिवार चला लिया और परिवार अगर डिसीजन लेती है कि हम जो उनकी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के विचार है, उसको छोड़ के अपोजिशन के अगर साथ परिवार जाएगा तो पार्टी नहीं जाएगी, पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता नहीं जाएगी। ये सबक ये डिसीजन के माध्यम से मिलेगा।
बट सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बड़ी क्रिटिकल टिप्पणियां की हैं गवर्नर के रोल के ऊपर।
गवर्नर के रोल पे क्योंकि लेकिन गवर्नर ने वो वहाँ पे क्रिटिकल सिचुएशन थी और जो भी गवर्नर ने डिसीजन लिया था वो लीगल ओपिनियन लेके ही उनके लीगल एडवाइजर को लेके डिसीजन लिया था। आगे स्पीकर का रोल इसमें इम्पोर्टेंट है। स्पीकर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का रेफरेंस लेके ही सब अपॉइंटमेंट और डिसीजन लेंगे और इसमें इलेक्शन कमीशन ने इसके पहले जो डिसीजन लिया था वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है। इलेक्शन कमीशन ने जो डिसीजन लिया था कि शिवसेना के पूरे राइट्स माननीय एकनाथ शिंदे साहब के पास रहेंगे, सिंबल भी एकनाथ शिंदे साहब के पास रहेंगे, तो वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टंट डिसीजन है।
जे काही सरकार तोडण्याकरता केलेले प्रयत्न आहेत ते पूर्णपणे बेकायदेशीर होते हे स्पष्ट करणारा तो निर्णय आहे। त्यावेळेचा व्हीप फोडणं असेल, सदस्य बाजूला काढणे असेल, त्यांचा व्हीप नेमणं असेल, हे बेकायदेशीर होतं। माननीय राज्यपालांनी दिलेले निर्णय बेकायदेशीर होते, माननीय विधानसभेच्या अध्यक्षांनी दिलेले निर्णय बेकायदेशीर होते। याचा अर्थ जे काही घटनाक्रम तो आहे तो बेकायदेशीर रीतीने करण्यात आला होता सत्ता स्थापनेकरता सत्तेच्या लालसेने। आता हे सगळं आहे तर याच्यामध्ये स्पष्टपणे दिसते जरी शिंदे सरकार वाचलेलं असलं, मुख्यमंत्री म्हणून एकनाथजी शिंदे असले तरी त्यांना नैतिक अधिकार मात्र आता राहिलेला नाही।
आज के सर्वोच्च न्यायालय के फैसले का हम स्वागत करते हैं। उन्होंने जो निर्णय दिया है बहुत ही सकारात्मक निर्णय है। उन्होंने साफ कह दिया है कि जो उस समय महाराष्ट्र राज्य के गवर्नर थे उनकी भूमिका असंवैधानिक रही। उन्होंने जिस प्रकार यह सरकार बनवाई, यह सरकार की पूरी प्रक्रिया असंवैधानिक रही। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने यह भी स्पष्ट किया कि जो व्हिप जारी किया था इस समय के वर्तमान स्पीकर राहुल नार्वेकर ने, वो व्हिप भी गलत तरीके से जारी हुआ, क्योंकि व्हिप हमारी पार्टी यानी शिवसेना, उद्धव बाला साहब ठाकरे जी की जो पार्टी है शिवसेना, उन्होंने अपने व्हिप को दिया था, उसको न मानते हुए उन्होंने शिंदे सेना के व्हिप को जो जारी किया वो भी गलत है।
आज जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट का फैसला आया है, हमें भी उम्मीद थी कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट जो सच्चाई है उसके बारे में ही निकाल देगी, और जिस तरह से आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने निर्णय दिया है मैं उसका स्वागत करता हूं, और हमारे आदरणीय एकनाथ जी शिंदे साहब को भी बधाई देता हूं कि जो निर्णय उन्होंने और आदरणीय देवेंद्र जी फडणवीस साहब ने लिया था वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली बहुत सही था, योग्य था। वो आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसको अपनी सिक्का मोर्तब किया हुआ है।
राज्यपाल ने लिए हुए सारे के सारे निर्णय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने रद्द कर दिए। इसलिए मैं कहना चाहता हूं, महाराष्ट्र के जो मुख्यमंत्री हैं, महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री हैं, तुरंत उन्होंने इस्तीफा दे और लोकशाही का जो तत्व है उसको स्वीकार करें और इस तरह तुरंत इस्तीफा देकर दूर जाए।
Some other developments now coming in. Sources are telling us here at CNN News 18 that the Supreme Court's decision and verdict has in fact cleared the way and paved the way for a cabinet expansion in the state of Maharashtra. Sources are also telling us that in a few weeks it's a possibility that the Chief Minister may expand his cabinet by inducting 15 to 16 senior as well as junior ministers. Because this has been a big relief for the Shinde faction, we're now understanding it's a possibility that we could see a cabinet expansion as well. Let's also now bring in our colleague Mayuresh, who in fact has getting us this development. Mayuresh, what are sources telling you?
The sources are indicating that there is a possibility within few weeks that Shinde may expand his cabinet by inducting 15 to 16 senior as well as junior ministers. If you remember that when Shinde took oath, along with him, Devendra Fadnavis and other ministers had taken oath, but after that there was no cabinet expansion happened. And yes, somewhere there was a feeling that if the Supreme Court decision comes against the Shinde, then it will be very embarrassing position for all the ministers, and that's why Shinde had basically not expanded his cabinet. But now, since the Supreme Court verdict has come and it is very much clear that the Shinde-Fadnavis government is safe, we have been given to understand by our sources in the Maharashtra government that soon there is a possibility that Shinde will expand his cabinet.
Right, Mayuresh, as you're pointing out, that the Shinde faction was waiting for this verdict. Now we could see a cabinet expansion as well. Shifting our focus to a press conference coming in by Sharad.
इनको बचाने के लिए मिलकर काम करने की आवश्यकता है। वैसे पूरा देश का नक्शा देखने के बाद ये स्थिति दिखती है कि मिलकर काम करे तो इस देश को जो एक वायबल अल्टरनेटिव चाहिए, वो अल्टरनेटिव को लोग समर्थन करेंगे। कल कर्नाटक का फोन हुआ, जहाँ तक हमारी इंफॉर्मेशन है, कर्नाटक की जनता बीजेपी को दूर करके वहाँ एक सेक्युलर गवर्नमेंट बनाने में आगे जाएगी। ये कर्नाटक तक सीमित नहीं, देश के बहुत बड़े हिस्से में यही स्थिति है। मगर ये स्थिति और इसमें कामयाबी आनी हो तो हम लोगों को मिलकर काम करना चाहिए। और मुझे खुशी है कि जिसकी आज आवश्यकता है, यह आवश्यकता पूरी करने के लिए नीतीश जी ने मिशन हाथ में लिया है। उन्होंने, उनके साथियों ने हमारे कई साथियों के साथ बातचीत की और आज महाराष्ट्र के साथियों ने भी इसी तरह से आगे जाने की आवश्यकता है, यही कहने के लिए यह आए थे। मुझे याद है कि दिल्ली में हम लोग बैठे थे, उनके पार्टी के साथी थे, राहुल गांधी थे, खड़गे जी थे, अन्य जो पार्टीज है सेक्युलर वो सब लोग थे। ये सभी में इसी लाइन पर बात हुई और निर्णय की आवश्यकता है, इस पर एक वाक्यता हुई है और इसकी प्रक्रिया जो नीतीश जी ने शुरू की है, इसका मैं स्वागत करता हूँ और उनको 2 शब्द बोलने का सुझाव देता हूँ।
ठीक है, तो साहब ने सारी बात कही दी, तो हम लोग तो आए ही थे मिलने के लिए और पहले भी मिले। हम लोग चाहते यही है कि देश में एकदम जो बीजेपी की पार्टी जिस तरह से जो कुछ भी कर रही है वो देश के हित में नहीं है। तो ऐसी स्थिति में ज्यादा से ज्यादा विपक्षी दल एकजुट होंगे तो वो देश के हित में होगा। तो इसी को सोच करके बातचीत तो हुई है, उसी सिलसिले में आए हैं। हम लोग सब इस बात के लिए एग्रीड हैं और अनेक दलों से बातचीत हो चुकी है। अब उसके बाद सब लोगों की सहमति हो रही है, तो अब एक साथ बैठ करके हम लोग आगे का सब चीज का निर्णय लेंगे। तो उसी सिलसिले में आज आपसे भी बात करने के लिए आज आए और बहुत अच्छा रहा। तो आप लोगों को इतना ही कहेंगे कि देश के हित में होने जा रहा है। आप
जानते एक सवाल है जिस
पवार साहेब, पण यूपीए जे आहे, यूपीए बरोबर राहून अशा पद्धतीने ही विरोधी पक्षाची सगळी एकजूट होणार आहे।
हो सकता है, जहाँ तक यूपीए में हम काम करते हैं तो वहाँ तो सभी की सहमति है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं। अभी सब लोग महाराष्ट्र में उद्धव जी के नेतृत्व वाली शिवसेना हो, कांग्रेस तो है ही है, हम लोग है ही है, और यहाँ के और छोटे कुछ पार्टीज है, उनके साथ भी हम बात करेंगे, मिलकर काम करेंगे, कोई तकलीफ नहीं।
निधि जी एक सवाल है, गठबंधन की बात कर रहे हैं, उसमें कांग्रेस आपके साथ रहेगी या नहीं रहेगी और उसका चेहरा कौन रहेगा?
नहीं, जो एक गठबंधन बनेगा तो आप तो शुरू से जानते हैं ना कि हम तो एक बड़ा गठबंधन बनाने के लिए लगे हुए, तो वो तो बन ही जाएगा। अब जैसी बातचीत जितने लोगों से हुई है तो अच्छा करके और फिर सब लोगों की राय से नामकरण भी गठबंधन का हो जाएगा, सब कुछ करके हो जाएगा।
तो राहुल जी का सवाल ये है,
बिल्कुल साथ में तो साथ ही रहते ही सब जगह लेके जाते हैं हम साथ।
निधि जी एक सवाल ये है कि आप शरद पवार साहब से मिलने आए हैं, क्या ये माना जाए कि शरद पवार साहब जो है विपक्ष का जो गठबंधन होगा उसका प्रमुख चेहरा होंगे और साथ में वो उनके नेतृत्व में आप?
इससे ज्यादा खुशी की कोई बातें नहीं है। हम इनको आज कह दिए, हम क्या बोले, एक रोज पटिया में रिजाइन कर दिए थे, हम सबको खराब लगा था, और फिर वापस आके आज हमने इनको कहा कि एकदम पूरा मजबूती से न सिर्फ अपनी पार्टी के लिए आपको करना है बल्कि पूरे देश के लिए काम करना है।
तो
ये सब
यूपी का चेहरा हो गया, चेयरमैन का चेहरा?
अरे जो भी होगा वो तो आपस में बातचीत करके हो जाएगा ना। अभी कुछ कहना तो ये उचित नहीं, तो सब बैठे
आज खाली मिलकर काम करना, यहाँ तक हम सोचे चेहरा वेरा बाद में देखा, हमारा सबका चेहरा हमें मालूम है कि लोग चाहते हैं कि यही चेहरे सामने चाहिए।
पवार साहेब, आज सुप्रीम कोर्टामध्ये निकाल लागला,
ये खत्म हो गई।
तेजस्वी जी आपसे एक सवाल है, तेजस्वी जी आपसे एक सवाल है, आप उद्धव साहब
होने वाली है, उस बैठक में ब्लूप्रिंट के बारे में भी बातचीत होगी, सर क्या कुछ प्लानिंग?
भाई अभी जो बैठक होगी ना वो तो उसके बारे में सब आपको समय पर बताएंगे।
एक सवाल है सर, एक सवाल है, आप उद्धव ठाकरे जी से मिले हैं, जिस तरीके का उनके साथ पार्टी की जो तोड़फोड़ मरोड़ हुई है और आज कोर्ट का फैसला भी आया है, क्या लगता है कि उसके जैसे व्यक्ति आपके साथ रहने से उनकी पार्टी की ताकत आपको मिलेगी या आपकी वजह से उनकी पार्टी को ताकत मिलेगी?
तो आए थे भाई देश का जो सही है, सब देश के सवाल के लेकर के एक
होने के लिए हम लोग आए
तो बिल्कुल आओ तो सारे प्रेस वालों से तो उनकी बातचीत हो ही गई
कोर्टात एक निरीक्षण नोंदवण्यात आलं की उद्धव ठाकरेंनी जर राजीनामा दिला नसता तर कदाचित मी वेगळा विचार केला असता कोर्टाचं जजमेंट मध्ये म्हणण्यात आलं. तुम्ही स्वतः म्हणाला होतात की
चर्चा करण्याचा अर्थ नाही. माझ्या पुस्तकात मी लिहिले ते
पण अशा पद्धतीने
जयंत पाटलांना ईडीची नोटीस आली आहे आणि दुसरीकडे निकाल पण आलाय.
अरे अब तो बात हो ही गया तो चलिए ना. अब ऐसा है कि जब बात कितना कह दिए हम लोग, इसके बाद जब होगा ना अगला मीटिंग होगा तो सब बात और डिटेल आएगा. हाँ बोलिए. तो सारे प्रेस वालों का ही आज खबर देखी है हम लोग. वहाँ के बारे में जो रिपोर्ट आई है तो उसमें तो जितनी रिपोर्ट आई है तो जिसमें ज्यादातर लिखा ही हुआ उनके पक्ष में. अच्छी बात है.
सुप्रीम कोर्टाच्या निकालाकडे आपण एकतर कसं बघताय आणि दुसरं आज जयंत पाटलांना पण ईडीची नोटीस आली.
असं आहे की जयंत साहेब ईडीची आली, आणखीन काही लोकांना आम्ही सगळेजण वाट बघतो कधी आणि कुणाला सत्तेचा गैरवापर हा सातत्याने केला जातो. त्याचंही उत्तम आहे. आम्ही त्याच्याशी लढू.
चुकीच्या गोष्टी केल्या, सगळ्या गोष्टी नियमबाह्य जाऊन केल्या.
राज्यपालांची निवड किती चुकीची केली जाते याचं उत्तम उदाहरण महाराष्ट्राने पाहिलेलं आहे. आणि मला वाटतं की जाहीर खानानं मी त्याच्यावरती इथं असताना एकदम बोललेलं आहे. आणि
एक बड़ी सभा होगी, उसके लिए देश भर आप घूम रहे हैं, सभी पक्ष से इकट्ठा कर रहे हैं.
अरे भाई कहाँ सभा होगी, कहाँ विपक्षियों की एकता की सभा होगी, वो तो उसके बाद घोषित होगा. अभी काहे के लिए कर रहे हैं? अभी कुछ करना ठीक नहीं. आप लोगों को भी
खुर्ची मागे
message against the atrocities that have been taking place against Sikhs. We're learning that one of those two was a former government employee. Now, we do have more details about the person. We are learning that he was upset, as we just told you, due to what he perceived were anti-Sikh activities taking place across the state. My colleague Anshul is with us to bring us more details. Anshul, some media outlets are also saying that the suspect distributed pamphlets at the site when the explosion took place, and those pamphlets also contained some information. Bring us some context, please, as to what took place early this morning and as to what police are finding now in their probe.
So yes, the police is carrying out a detailed investigation in this entire matter. If you see, initially the kind of reports that we picked up from Amritsar, the DGP himself and the other police sources on the ground said that this does not seem like a terror attack and this seems like a case of property dispute. But now, since the person has been taken into custody, it has now very clearly been revealed about the nitty-gritties of this entire operation that was carried out by these two individuals. Basically, they wanted to give a message of atrocities against Sikhs, and hence these low-intensity blasts were carried out. Now, these bombs that were used, these were crude bombs, and these were not ID or any other sort of sophisticated bombs, but these were crude bombs that were used, and hence it was of very, very low intensity. Now, remember the blast that happened on Saturday, at least 6 people got injured, whereas the blast that happened on Monday, another person got injured. He had a few splinters on his leg. Now, this entire investigation is now being carried out.
A development coming out of Amritsar, where early this morning the area around the Golden Temple saw the third blast it's seen since just Saturday. Now, in the blast that took place this morning, 5 people have already been arrested. Now, the blast itself took place in the early hours of the morning. And as we just told you, this is the 3rd blast the area has seen in just the last 7 days. Now, according to central agency sources, a kind of potassium chlorate was actually possibly used in the making of the explosion itself. Sources have further said that the blast seems to be more to provoke than to harm, with the timing of the last 2 blasts coinciding with the fact that there were lesser people in the area because it took place early in the morning. Now, the Punjab Police DGP is expected to brief the media over all of these attacks. Let's take a look. This is a walkthrough, a ground report that my colleague Rajiv Sharma brought us from the ground. Take a look.
मंदिर साहिब के बिल्कुल पास श्री गुरु रामदास सराय में एक धमाका होता है। 12:10 पर इसकी सूचना पुलिस को मिलती है और पुलिस कमिश्नर खुद मौके पर पहुंचते हैं। तो इस समय हम उसी जगह पर मौजूद हैं। आप देख सकते हैं कि श्री गुरु रामदास
I am Rashid Kidwai. Catch me on Sena News 18 as I join the channel's non-stop coverage on Karnataka elections on the 13th of May.
सवा 12 के आसपास यहाँ पे इंटीमेशन आई थी कि यहाँ पे एक लाउड साउंड हैज़ बीन हर्ड। इट इज़ सस्पेक्टेड दैट देयर इज़ अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि एक एक्सप्लोजन और हुआ है, बट बिकॉज अभी अंधेरा है और ये इस बिल्डिंग के पीछे हुआ है, वहाँ पे अभी तक एक कंफर्म नहीं हो पाया है कि वेदर इट इज़ अ ब्लास्ट और कोई और इंसिडेंट है। आर FSL टीम इज़ ऑन द स्पॉट, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं एंड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स एज पार्ट जो हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, हम सस्पेक्ट्स को राउंड अप कर रहे हैं, लोगों को वेरीफाई कर रहे हैं, पूछताछ कर रहे हैं।
बड़े लंबे समय तो मैं देख ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਰੀਅਸਲੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਫਿਰਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2-4 ਦਿਨ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2 ਘਟਨਾਵਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬਲਾਸਟ ਹੋਏ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਬਲਾਸਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਦਿਲਚਸਪੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਈ। ਇਹ ਮੈਂ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਵੱਜ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੀ, ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਹੈਗੇ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ। ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਤੱਥ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਤੱਥ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਲੇ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੇ, ਪਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਚੇਚੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਡੰਗਾਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਸਾਜ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਨੰਗੀ ਕਰੋ।
Like Aam Aadmi Party, Bhagwant Mann should spend more time on focusing on the law and order situation of the state rather than arresting journalists who show the truth of the mirror of truth to the entire Kejriwal and Bhagwant Mann establishment.
सर, कैसे ऐसा हुआ जहां पर एक्सप्लोजन हुआ है जो अमृतसर साहिब के।
Okay, we're now moving to more details in this same case. This is a Sena News 18 exclusive on the Amritsar blast probe. Remember, we told you that 5 people had been arrested already in relation to the explosion that took place this morning in particular. Now, top intelligence...
Well, at the top of 4 p.m., there's the latest bit of development coming in. Multiple vehicles have been set on fire in the center of the city. These are the visuals coming in from northern Italy. In Milan, these large explosions have been reported. The visuals on your screen right now. What exactly is the cause of this huge explosion in this big city of Italy? What led to this? The visuals right now. We'll continue getting you all the details emerging from this developing stories at this point in time. Several vehicles have been set ablaze. That's the word really coming in. That means there's huge law and order situation that has been witnessed in the city. Large-scale explosion that has been seen in Milan in Italy. This is the northern part of Italy where a large-scale explosion was seen. Multiple vehicles have been set on fire. Developments coming in from Europe, from Italy. That's where this unrest has been reported. We'll continue tracking this story. We'll continue getting you all the details as to what exactly led to this large-scale violence. Pathikrit is with us on the broadcast. Pathikrit, help us understand. Several vehicles in flames after explosion hit the center of Italy's this prime city. What exactly do we know about this?
Well, one thing is for sure that this kind of explosion in Western Europe and Central Europe has been there for quite some time. Time since, Al Qaeda's presence became validated in whole of Europe and later on by ISIS. So there can only be two things. Either this is an accidental explosion because of an accumulation of chemical or anything like that. But generally it doesn't happen in those advanced cities. You won't have storehouses like that. The possibility of, while we have to wait for confirmation, but the possibility of a major terror attack by an ISIS or any other splinter group cannot be ruled out. One thing we have to keep in mind is that over the last, say, half a decade, there has been a major, what you can say, influx of illegal immigrants from Northern Africa into many of these European countries and especially in Italy.
Okay.
So, and many of them might be radicalized. They're coming from countries which are themselves torn apart by, war against, Islamist extremist organizations. So,
Okay.
and there is no vetting about who is coming in. So we have to wait and watch. But if it is a terror attack, then it would not be surprising because the guards have been lowered in Europe for a long time. It was only a foregone conclusion that it was a question of when and if not if.
This is one of the possibilities that Pathikrit is thinking aloud with us. This is a blast that has rocked the city centre. These visuals are coming in from the northern part of Italy in Milan. That's where this huge explosion has been reported at the city centre. Several vehicles also, of course, caught the blaze. What exactly is the reason behind it? How did this blast occur? What exactly is behind this? Is a wait and watch. But of course, the law and order, the security angle can never be ruled out. There are various targeted attacks and killings that we have seen in Western Europe in the last few years. And the expanse of the terror groups has only increased. Now, that's one facet that cannot be overlooked. But I draw a caution here that we wait for the details to emerge.